Hello and welcome to fSobriety. I am Craig Woods and I am a vulture cleaning the carcass of an overfed sow, a powdered donut sinking into an outhouse pit.
I am Alan Todd and good shitting Christ, we are all the way through the looking class now.
And I am James Hamilton, and I hope that one day in your time of need you'll be met with the same ineptitude and uselessness that you have shown me here today.
And together, collectively, we are the Podcasterhood of Dafties. We are here today, of course, to discuss more Doom Patrol, Season 3, Episodes 4 and 5 specifically.
That's right, we're on the Doom Patrol train.
We have finally got it together. We have stopped procrastinating around. We've got rid of a few obstacles that have been preventing us from doing these in a timely manner, and hopefully we shall be doing them in a timely manner forthwith.
For those listening, this episode will probably have come out at absolute most a week after our previous episode, so you're welcome for the 2 episodes within the space of a week.
Enjoy. Alright, so shall we just dive straight in? I think we should.
I think we should. Let's talk about Doom Patrol, Season 3, Episode 4.
Undead Patrol! This episode was directed by Kristen Windell. It was written by Tamara Becker Wilkinson. She was also responsible, incidentally, for Doom Patrol, Puppet Patrol, and Dumb Patrol. So she clearly has a flair for very madcap comedic episodes of this show.
She has a pedigree for this sort of thing. Some of my favourite episodes, no less, of the show that she's written. I don't know if I've even picked up on this before, if I had noticed, but this and the next episode have a all-female written by and directed by.
Yeah, good note. I did notice that too, yeah. In keeping with the theme of sisterhood, perhaps.
And it's, do you know what? It's damn good to see that, because they're knocking it out the park.
Yeah, they really are. These 2 episodes, before we go any further, let's just say, these 2 episodes are amazing.
Yes.
And I am absolutely thrilled to be talking about these 2 episodes for a number of reasons. In fact, I'll get this preamble out the way just now. This show always delights me, but these 2 episodes, particularly back-to-back, have just been incredible. Some of the stuff going on with the characters has been great. The comedy has been top shelf. Yep. And the fact that we are getting the Sisterhood of Dada really thrills me, because the Brotherhood of Dada from the comics, Grant Morrison's run, on which they're based, that is actually one of my favourite things from Grant Morrison's run, and it's I should not be surprised about this anymore, considering some of the stuff this show has given us already. But I never dreamed that I would ever see these characters on screen. If somebody had said to me back in 1989, 1990, oh, by the way, one day there'll be a show with those characters on it, I'd be like, okay, sure, stop smoking the crack, mate. But here they are, and I could not be happier.
We'll save my ratings till the end, but you can guess what they're going to be.
I feel it's a foregone conclusion about the scores, but yeah, let's continue.
We begin with some country music playing, while our good friend Willoughby Kipling...
Our old pal Willoughby Kipling is assembling himself an exceedingly good David Cronenberg-esque Mike Mouth Niles head.
He's doing himself a Rabbi Low and making himself a golem out of Niles.
Yeah, that's the word, yes.
This Niles head is horrific.
It is absolutely awful, man. And I remember last episode we recorded, I said, I'm really sad that Timothy Dalton is no longer on screen. But honestly, this episode, I was like, I did not want him back like this. This is horrible.
Yeah, one of the most handsome men ever. It's like, nope.
Niles, understandably, is similarly appalled by the situation and asks Willoughby what he could possibly have in mind. To which Willoughby replies, we've got loads of important shit to do. And we soon see that is
Cyrano de Baphomet.
Yes. He's brought Niles back to act as his intermediary wingman or winghead. And literally speaking through Niles... This shit is so disturbing and simultaneously so hilarious.
It's the fact that he's sitting under the table like a fucking child, just going like...
The camera just kind of pans down.
The dialogue is just magnificent, though, is when Kipling, as Niles, says, I just want to talk to you head to head. And Baphomet, clearly freaking out, says, what's happened to you? And he says, what do you mean? I think I look top shelf. So anyway, I just wanted to ask Kipling, is he someone you could see yourself winding up with? And of course, Baphomet, not being a dummy, figures out what's going on. And the way that plays out is just so ridiculous. There's so many things going on here at once. The horror of Niles's head, the patheticness of what Willoughby is doing here. And let's just remind ourselves, this is one actor in a room with two heads. And that's the cast in this scene. And I love how Niles actually says this is pathetic even for your standards, Willoughby.
And Willoughby's still under the table at this point, like he's not moved. Like,
I have no interest in these baby games.
This all gets broken up by the arrival of an unexpected visitor, to which Willoughby initially announces wrong room, dickhead. And then who's it going to be, guys? Who's it going to be? Who's the visitor? Oh, we'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, back at Doom Manor. So, let me just say this. I'm really loving the way that Michelle Gomez has just slipped into being the surrogate Timothy Dalton for this season. It's bringing a whole new dynamic, even though currently her character has amnesia, which we'll talk about more in a minute. For a show that is just a full cast of oddballs, it's a difficult thing to cast someone to be the maternal/paternal figure who has to have some kind of edge of oddness about them. But if you're going to employ anybody to do that, I guess Michelle Gomez is one of your best bets.
She's superb. Like, just even like just a little eyebrow raise is enough to be like, fucking hats off, well done.
yeah. Michelle Gomez's eyebrows deserve their own credit, to be honest. But yeah, she quickly runs down what the situation is, and they're all asking her questions. The main question being, what the fuck are you doing here? Who are you? Questions she can't answer at the moment. And early on here, we start to notice that the Doom Patrol are all itching. What's that about,
they're
guys?
all scratching.
They ask Madame Rouge, as she will come to be revealed, how long she's been there, to which she clarifies, long enough to see bandages mock up the bodies. And Larry has to explain, say, look, I was going through some things.
And it's how everybody just accepts that and goes, cool, yeah, no worries, like, just moving on. Not the weirdest thing that's happened.
So she explains about her time machine, to which, and I love this, considering everything the Doom Patrol has been through in 2 seasons and a half, the one thing they refuse to believe in is time travel. She clearly ridiculous. And then Cliff has that immortal line, hashtag Cheeto Dick.
That's what you would go back and change? Fucking A.
They go and look at Madame Rouge's time machine, and Rita, of course, recognises the overalls that are hanging up inside as those worn by her doppelganger back in episode 2.
Now, back when we were talking about episode 2, we posited that it was not Rita that pushed Rita back into the room, that it was Madame Rouge doing a bit of a shapeshift. But looks like world-renowned time traveller Rita Farr might be a thing.
Yeah, could be responsible for her own fuckery here. Yeah, that's quite feasible. So I'm enjoying this trait of Michelle Gomez throwing teacups. She does it once a piece in each of these episodes.
Yep. I love the joy in Cliff's voice when he finally reveals to her that Niles is dead, or quote-unquote, deader than shit.
Deader than shit.
I love saying that.
Yes, so she doesn't take that too well, throws a teacup, and while she's distracted, Rita sabotages the time machine by pulling a bit off it. Madame Rouge decides, since she has a time machine, she's just going to go back to a time when Niles was still alive, and says she's going to go back a couple of weeks to which the Doom Patrol protests, oh no, you don't want to do that. Things have been crazy.
Sex ghosts.
Lousy with sex ghosts.
My favourite part of this is when she goes, 3 weeks!
Rolling the R's,
That's like the best R roll that I've heard.
Yeah, the makers of this show are getting great mileage out of the Scots R roll.
This is all tribute to Grant Morrison as well, though, right? Grant Morrison, I think you'll think.
But she insists she's going to go back the right number of weeks, to which Cliff says, when you see him, tell him I said, and flips up the fingers. Says, you'll know what it means. But, of course, time machine doesn't work because Rita has done a...
Oh my god, Rita's face when she pops back out of the time machine after it fails to move is incredible.
And Madame Rouge asks, who's good with machines? To which everybody points at Vic. A bit unfairly. And Vic rightly protests, says, Cliff knows how to fix cars.
Cliff knows everything about cars. No, I know more than that.
But I don't care about any of this shit.
Madame Rouge decides that she wants Larry to be her side man in this, but unfortunately, poor Larry has to go vom up some blue stuff.
Yeah, so Larry's going through a bad time here since losing contact with the spirit. So, what's going on there? Spoiler, guys, it's going to get worse.
He's having a baby. A little spirit baby.
Cliff, meanwhile, is talking to an internet doctor about all his problems. And I do love this awkward pause after he finishes his entire spiel. And the doctor says, oh, goddamn TikTokers, I'm sick of this shit.
I love when he says, my buddy Cyborg. Wait, I don't know why I said that. Cyborg's not really my buddy. He's just like a lesser version of me that lives in the house.
And we note there's a patch of rot on Cliff's head at this point. But meanwhile, Jane is assembling creepy Bob Ross fan art outside. As Cliff will coin it later. Okay, this mock-up nails chef's kiss. Amazing.
Yeah.
And as she's assembling that, we notice a fly rocket up her nostril. Hats off to Diane Guerrero, that's real method acting. I'm an idiot who doesn't understand CGI.
We've also got Rita doing the full kind of questioning of Madame Rouge. My favourite line here is when she keeps asking her about stuff and she's like, do you remember anything? Take a good look at me. And Madame Rouge is like, do you understand how amnesia works?
I really enjoyed Michelle Gomez's delivery when she says that Rita's clingy neediness is really annoying.
I love these two. I want a show that's just Rita.
Yeah, these
and
two
Madame
are
Rouge.
Amazing together. This is a pair made in
And
heaven.
the next episode, when they kind of have like an extended scene together, it's fucking brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Just incredible. So eventually, Madame Rouge, Laura DeMille, or Shannon, if you want to call her that,
she remembered her name.
That's what we're calling her.
figures out how to get the key sorted, opens up a chessboard, and there's a film reel inside. Mysteries abound.
This is almost as convoluted as a Boards of Canada release.
More like chessboards of Canada. Meanwhile, Vic is having a wee spot of bother with his arm. He needs some E4-5 for that, mate. Silas turns up.
Silas seems really unconcerned that his son died.
Yeah, I did notice he glossed over that in this conversation. I guess they get bigger things to talk about, like time travel and memory loss.
Time travel? That's fringe.
I do enjoy that description from Silas. Yeah, that's very fringe. Those experiments have resulted in memory loss. Vic chooses this moment to confront Silas about what his mother told him in the afterlife, or hinted at. That there was another choice to make, a substitute rather than the cyborgism in order to save Vic after the accident. So that's a bit of a thorny confrontation. We do learn, though, that Silas is on administrative leave because of Vic allowing Ronnie to escape.
It's another perspective or another point of proof that Star Labs considers Cyborg their property more than a person.
Which is going to be a big theme, it looks like, as we go on, because there's a great moment in the next episode where this is concerned. Yeah, I'm always happy to see Silas, because I love this actor. I love how he can come in with this calm sense of authority and gravitas into this world of absolutely zany weirdos, and somehow just make all that make sense. I believe every moment this guy speaks. He's also a velvety voiced fuck.
He is a velvety voiced fuck, but he also like flip-flops so much in this show between being an arsehole and being you do care.
It's going to be interesting to see how they come to some resolution with that this season, because they're definitely playing about with it in a bigger way here at the moment, because this is the first time we've seen Silas at any sort of position of weakness in this relationship. It feels like they're much more on an even standing at the moment. So yeah, keep an eye on that one. Meanwhile, Larry is very depressed and talking to his dying plants about him also dying. There's a whole lot of death talk going on here, a whole lot of existentialism.
Yep, he believes that his vomiting and decaying is just because the spirit left him, and he's actually dying.
Yeah, he seems to believe he's not long for this world. Rita tells him about her doppelganger and tries to convince him, as she's trying to convince herself, that this must mean that she must be a world-renowned time traveller. And Larry quite brutally tells her, you're just trying to find some specialness inside you that isn't there. I ouched at that bit, because Rita's face was like, oh, Larry.
The one person that she shouldn't hear that from.
Right.
We've talked about this before, but their relationship is really beautiful.
It is lovely, yeah.
And even when he pulls it back a little when he says, look, I love you too much to lie to you.
Yeah, it's at that moment you're like, you've somehow made it sweet.
Yeah.
God damn this show. And in amongst this, as that's unfolding with all the feels, there's increased zombification happening on these two characters. And Rita has an uncontrollable urge to lick Larry's skull. Did you just lick me?
No.
Incredible. Meanwhile, when all this is going on, Michelle Gomez is sitting by herself watching the film reel. Here we're getting into the stuff that's got me really excited. So this is an old Sisterhood of Dada film from the early 20th century.
Petting a cat.
Petting a Cat, starring Shelley Byron as woman petting a cat, and Laura DeMille as cat. And so she's watching this unfold as the film does exactly what it says. And at this moment in time, the Laura DeMille in question on screen is purely a cat. And I love this moment where Madame Rouge suddenly has the urge to dance.
We've all been there.
And that's before anything has been revealed yet, and it's like something subconscious just taking over her as she's watching this.
It's her gut elephant.
Her gut elephant, as she calls it. Yeah, the part of the body that never forgets, never gets it wrong. And Michelle Gomez busting out moves there.
You know what? This show can do a fucking dance scene, as it's proven before.
Yep.
So then the cat on screen transforms into a bird, and then transforms into Michelle Gomez. And so Laura realises that's who she is. And I love the way this film is shot, by the way. It does actually look like something from the early 20th century. And the dance that Shelley and Laura are doing is just so great. Chef's kiss. Love it. But never mind all that shit, guys. Zombie Vic arm. Rita's hair's falling out. Larry's falling down the stairs. Cliff and Jane are puking up maggots.
When Vic peels his sleeve back and his skin comes off. It's like,
Yeah.
it's so gross.
Yes.
That was a proper Romero moment.
I do love when Larry falls down the stairs and he's just pure like crunch, crack, crack, and then when he gets up it's just like completely out of thriller, just horrible noises.
Yeah, realigning his own skull.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
And then it just goes back to the way it was. It's like,
And Cliff makes the observation, just in case the viewers are confused about it, that this must be because of the spider lady's puke in the previous episode.
It's not just vomit, as it turns out.
You were wrong, Rita. So Laura cannot help herself. She's so excited to announce to the rest of the guys that I'm a bird. To which the Doom Patrol, staggering slowly through the hallway, reply, brains. Oh, this is so fantastic. This was the first point in the episode where I had to pause it because I just started laughing so hard. I was like, okay.
As soon as the subtitles came up, I was dying. I love the different coloured subtitles for each character.
yeah.
My favourite part before Willoughby turns up, you hear him ringing the doorbell, and as soon as the doorbell rings, they all stop shuffling and talking. And it's just like silence, and he walks in, and then they're back to going, brains. Yeah, the subtitles are top quality. Kipling explains to Laura that they're going to have to kill them. That's his initial plan, his initial instinct. Which Zombie Larry also guesses, to which Kipling replies, got it in one Bubba Hotep. I have to make a special shout out as well to April Bowlby, particularly her delivery of brains. I don't know how many times that cracked me up in the course of this episode. Brains. So Kipling sees some reason, and he and Laura reconvene in the lab downstairs. And one of my favourite things I really enjoyed here was the classic Day of the Dead framing of all the Doom Patrol up against the window. And even like and that lab's normally green, and it's just like, oh, this is a 100% a mid 80s Romero shot.
But is that with all of them just kind of talking in zombie grunts?
The dialogue in the zombie grunts is so great. Kipling explains that Niles' head has been stolen by our old pal Darren Jones from the ant farm, whom Jane refers to as G.I. Joke, which I quite enjoyed. And Darren Jones has a ransom video in which he holds up Niles' severed head, and Niles says, "Save yourselves!"
Why does Darren Jones have the machete though? Do you know what I mean? Like, his head's already been severed. That was the bit that was fucking cracking me up.
I don't know. I was actually surprised nobody addressed that in the dialogue.
Holding the head machete, and it's like, no, Willoughby already did that.
This thing as well with Willoughby using the magic tree from James Dean's car on the night he crashed. It hides the smell of brains. The writing on this show is so fucking great.
I love all of Willoughby's spell components though, because they are all super inventive and really just kind of weird and awesome. Yeah,
it's that perfect blend of, it is on the one hand all the kind of archetypal stuff you would recognise from anything that involves sorcery, but with some sort of madcap twist, and they always get the balance absolutely right. So after much cajoling, Laura convinces Willoughby Kipling that they should go and do the right thing and retrieve Niles's head and try and do something about getting the Doom Patrol back to their normal selves. I'm glad we got the return here of Willoughby Kipling's cigarette burn portal. It's always enjoyable.
Yeah. Willoughby Kipling's line, is it too much to ask for you not to fuck yourselves up so spectacularly?
He says, do you have a plan? I did have a plan, a bloody good one. But, as per usual, your dumb fuckery jammed a spanner up my arse, and now you're zombies.
You can tell as well that Mark Sheppard is absolutely relishing, delivering every single one of those lines. He's having the time of his life whenever he turns up here. So they make their way to this cabin in the woods, a la the Evil Dead.
They turn up at the cabin in the woods and say it's like something out of a horror movie.
Yeah, weird monsters.
While they're zombies.
Yes. Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. It's the fact that it's Vic that says that for some reason makes it funnier. Kipling hands Laura a small item which he says is petrified dragon's piss. Says it's the fire everyone worries about, but it's the piss that'll get you. And directs the Doom Patrol by saying, "Come along, Solomon's Grundy." I'm starting to realise a lot of this episode, our episode so far, is us just repeating things that were said, but holy shit, this dialogue is just so funny. So inside the cabin, they find Kipling's coat, and they get the notes from Darren's apparently long-suffering wife, and what Kipling describes as a serial killer diary.
How many trees had to die for those letters?
Leaving nothing for his grandkids.
Yeah, Cliff is very upset about this. He's
I
thinking
love
about
Cliff,
the
the
future.
environmentalist robot.
Jones enters and no word from the zombies. Clearly there's no smell of brains from Darren Jones. And he says, "Well, I'll tell you about how I ended up like this." And then the unified groan from the zombies. Oh. And Michelle Gomez, being classic Michelle Gomez, on the roof, trying to prepare to fly through it as a bird, shouting to the heavens, "Transform!" Eventually transforming herself into an ottoman, apparently.
Pin, holding this disgusting artifact, transform into a bird, as I have many times before, no doubt.
Yeah, bad news, but that dragon's piss guy has turned out to be a dud.
I love that there's like, what's the last thing you would expect her to turn into? A fucking small couch.
Fabulous.
Oh, man.
Vic makes the observation that he never used to swear like this before.
Meanwhile, G.I. Joke is trying to get his villain monologue out, and they're not responding in the way that they should. It's just he has to tell them what to ask.
Normally, when I say something
Most
happens,
people usually ask a thing, Most
Which
people
is
show a modicum of interest.
absolute silence.
It's the perfect level of subversion for this kind of scene,
And Kipling eventually relents and asks, and that's when it becomes clear, after what is probably the most iconic transformation scene since that one in American Werewolf in London, which Jane observes he's turning into a mother-fudging werebutt. The butts are loose again.
A full moon, and then he becomes the butt.
I did not foresee we were going to get the butts back.
Vic swears more, but Jane doesn't. You notice that? Like, mother fudging.
Oh, good point.
yeah.
Yeah, good catch.
But when he's talking about being repeatedly bitten by butts, it didn't strike me that there would be lycanthropy involved.
No, it was not something I was expecting.
Just before it happened, I was like, a werebutt? Really? And it fucking happened. I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, man. Like, and then it howls, and that is the moment, like, I fucking lost it.
This is the thing. It ups the ante every second. It's like, okay, we've got a werebutt, cool. And then the butt starts howling. It was that point I was like, no, come on, man.
Now, I know that this show is on HBO Max, right, which is cable, which is very loose rules, but I never expected a mainstream TV show to have this much ass eating in it.
I've got that in my notes, just massive, like, covering of, like, 4 lines, eating ass.
It's absolutely incredible. Zombies versus butts. Where else do you get this kind of entertainment, guys?
Possibly in a Mexican TV show. But...
Aye, yeah, possibly, aye.
Chupacabras versus butts, surely. Like.
Thoroughly enjoy Rita being unsure what to do at first. Jane insisting that you just eat. And Rita absolutely repulsed by the taste of the butt. Then we've got Chainsaw Larry going full Ash from the Evil Dead.
Fucking amazing. I put Leatherface Larry, but because he's doing the kind of swinging around thing.
That's true enough, yeah.
Yeah, they're just piling on the tropes, and it's beautiful.
The choreography in this scene, though, like, one of the things about this show is, like, it has all these mad ideas, but it doesn't just rest on the laurel of being a show with crazy ideas. It does the crazy ideas and does each of them really fucking well. Like, this whole scene, if you supplant the butts with any other creature, this would be a really great scene in the middle of one of those kind of movies, you know what I mean? Everything about it is choreographed so goddamn well.
Instead
It's shot so well.
bipedal, monstrous butts running about being eaten by zombies. Fucking insane. All the time this is happening, Michelle Gomez is lying on the floor going, Niles' head. And then she has this line which fucking blew me away, man. There's no failure, only death. And you will not die today, sister. Just fucking amazing, man. She gets up to go and get it.
I guess it's one of the main scenes, but it's really notable that this might be the first time that Michelle Gomez has starred in a consecutive number of scenes where she has not been the most ridiculous element.
Yep.
So anyway, TLDR, the butts are vanquished. The stuff this show makes you say out loud. Willoughby realises that they've lost the magic tree. They have to leg it out there for the Doom Patrol, renew their thirst for brains. The head of Niles realises he can save the Doom Patrol, and so they make their way back to Doom Manor. And one of my favourite lines here in this episode is with Niles' head on the table and Willoughby Kipling just looking down at him says, "Alright, Walt Disney, what's the plan?" And this is where Niles explains this whole thing about the reason zombies having a thirst for brains is because there's a chemical that actually cures the condition of zombification inside the human brain, and that the idea has been bastardized by decades of Hollywood filmmakers. Joyce.
So good.
My only problem with this is that how could Willie B. Kipling not know that?
I love that makes so much more sense than any other explanation for zombies eating brains.
Niles is going somewhere with this. See this fucking show, man, honestly. And I know when I was listening back to our season 2 discussion, I was laughing at how many times I said this. And you know where I'm going, James. It's like, how does this show keep doing this? Like, we're laughing at all this ridiculous shit, but now I'm about to say something about the really subtle nuances of how this show portrays the complexities of friendship and human relationships generally. Because as Niles is explaining his plan, Willoughby realises and completes his sentence and says, "Oh, you want to feed yourself to them." Mark Sheppard plays it so brilliantly because he's still got that cheeky boy taking the piss aura on top of everything, but you can tell he's heartbroken. And I love the way this scene is played out. And Timothy Dalton, for his part, despite not being on screen, he does a great job with just his voice. Velvety voiced fuck. And Niles says, "They're my family. This is all I have left to give them." And it's the way that Kipling can't do it. He says, "No, I can't feed you to them. Can't do it." It's like, oh, these guys. It's like, despite all the sharp-pronged banter between them, it's like, there was actually a brotherly love there, and I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Bros before zombos.
Again, we've talked about the way this show expertly juggles and balances the different emotions, and god damn if this episode doesn't do it so well.
I don't understand how it works. I don't get it. With all the crazy shit in this episode, how did they do this and make it work?
Absolutely should not work. But it gives the Chief a chance to pay back in a little way all the shit he's put them through.
Right, and this is the other thing it does as well. It perfectly brings all these emotional threads together that have been hanging around since the Chief's death in the first episode. And even the whole thing with Jane. Like zombie Jane looking at when she's holding Niles' head and she says, in zombie grunts, "I have so much to say to you." And he says, "It's all right, Jane. I love you. Eat me." It's ridiculous, and yet it's extremely evocative and extremely touching all at once. And how the fuck is this possible? Also, Willoughby's exit when he says, "We've had some good times," while all this mad shit is going on.
Baphomet
looks
really does
over
love
his shoulder, says, "So long, you bearded twat. Hope they choke on you." Yeah, Niles, that's his kiss off. He says, "Baphomet really does love you, but just stop smothering her." Can we just remind ourselves, he's talking about a kind of spectral horse head. That's the object of Willoughby's affections. What is this? What is this show? Question mark! Exclamation mark!
Our Michelle Gomez agrees that she'll feed Niles to them in return for a little bit of information. And boy, we get the hard-ass Timothy Dalton back for a couple of minutes.
Yep, we do. We get yes, very much the stern chief comes back for a second
with the steely eyes of a killer.
Steely blue eyes of a killer. And he basically tells her that she is one of the worst people he's ever encountered, which, when you think about some of the people Niles has encountered. And he says he'll give her documents explaining who she is in exchange for her promise that she will stay far away from the Doom Patrol. I really enjoy Michelle Gomez's performance here. The way that she emotes as she's saying, I don't feel like I'm a bad person. When people do bad deeds, it leaves a permanent mark on the soul, kind of thing. And I believe I talked about this in our previous episode, but Madame Rouge in the comics does have a split personality, and quite often the two personalities do not know what the other is doing. And so it's really kind of tragic in a way that she is this good person in this moment who literally does have no idea that she could be a bad person, because technically she isn't. And again, it's another moment where all this crazy shit is happening. She's talking to a decapitated head with a makeshift microphone for a mouth, and I'm still sitting there going, God, Michelle Gomez, you're really hitting out of the park there. That's a really emotional performance. I'm feeling for you right now.
Yeah. Everybody in this show deserves all the Emmys, right? And they're never going to get nominated for one. Not one.
No.
I know. I mean, genre shows generally never do regardless, but because this show is just doing so much, and it's combining so many elements that in the quote-unquote rule book of how to do telly aren't supposed to be done, you know? And so it's never going to get the due it deserves.
At the most recent Emmys, Lovecraft Country and The Mandalorian and WandaVision all got tons and tons of nominations.
That's true.
But to be fair, they didn't win anything.
Yeah.
While they are kind of fringe, they're still way more fucking mainstream though than Doom Patrol, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the problem.
I'm honestly still surprised and overjoyed that we've even got a third season of this show. Because when we were watching the first season, I remember thinking to myself, I don't know if we'll get to enjoy this for much longer, so I'm just overjoyed we at least got this. Then season 2 happened, and then James, you and I had the overjoyed announcement we got to make when we heard on the podcast that, huzzah, we're getting a third season. Can you believe it? So, you know, who knows? Long may it continue.
Has this show
I
just
never wanted
fallen
to
into
end
the exact fucking proper crack that it's done enough to be ignored by the people who would normally go, we're spending how much on what? And, you know, like, just enough to get the folk who are interested in it, like, kind of still watching. I don't know, like, it's obviously found that sweet spot in it, like, the amount of good things that I fucking have just been heartbroken that have been cancelled, and stuff that had the potential to be good.
We've all been there.
Swamp Thing, like, it wasn't amazing, but it was cancelled before it had even fucking begun, which is the fucking insane part. All because of tax. In a country like America, where you don't believe in taxes. What the fuck?
Tread on this.
IRS patrol.
I'm flipping up the double middle fingers, by the way. You'll know what it means. But yeah, honestly, this show makes me so happy. And without going into detail, like, I've had a bad few months, but you know what, man? This show has cheered me up no end. It's given me the boost I needed. And every season of this show has just been an absolute fucking joy. I cannot overstate just how necessary this show has been just for my mental health. Not just because it is so ridiculous and funny, because it is, as we've discussed, dealing with so many themes that are so relevant to people who find it hard. And mental health and relationship difficulties and so many other complicated things, all under the guise of a comedy superhero show. It's fucking insane.
It's like a weekly version of a sitcom's very special episode, but with superheroes.
Yeah.
And it's somehow way better
and zombie
than
butts.
any very special episode.
This week, zombie butts. Of course.
Yep, we have that beautiful voice acting of Timothy Dalton, the performance of Michelle Gomez feeding his head to the group, and that moment where, you know...
Can I just make a special shout out here as they're munching down? Rita's laugh
Right. In that moment, they've just had this really serious moment, and then Larry trying to eat the brains through the bandages.
Yeah, and Cliff's trying to ram it into his mouthpiece. Which, by the way, was a question that I had while I was watching this. Well, this is all cool, but how exactly does Cliff digest brains? He doesn't have a digestive system. It's handy that the next episode does explain that slightly. But yeah, I was thinking, I don't get how this works. But okay. But my shout out for this episode, even though everybody is amazing, but April Bowlby is probably my shout out for this episode. She clearly was having a great time being a zombie.
The dude who does the body of Larry,
Matthew Zuck.
yeah, like his thriller performance through the whole fucking thing is amazing. Like he's the best one, like for the movement and stuff. Like absolutely knocks it out of the park.
Yep.
And the guy who does Cliff's body is, as always, just a big dumb fucking robot. It's amazing.
I think both those guys, and I think it's the case a lot of time for actors who get work as body doubles, is they've done a lot of dance work and stuff like that. So they're like very sort of nimble with their movements, and it's fantastic when you get these kind of cartoony moments that this show does, how they can just pull that shit out, you know. And it's like, wow, this episode, the zombie stuff, yeah, it's just absolutely amazing. And there's been tons of stuff like that in the first two seasons as well, where the characters have had to do a lot of really madcap things. And it's stuff that, you know, if Brendan Fraser was in the Cliff suit, as I remember the first season, to think to myself, just in those early episodes, wait, is Brendan Fraser actually dressed as a robot? Because that's crazy. It would never have been the same. You really need and there's no shade to Brendan Fraser. Love Brendan Fraser and everything he's doing, but it's just a different kind of acting. Like you do need to have these people who do the body double work, and they don't get shouted out enough, which is why I think we mentioned it in the previous episode. I'm super glad to see that both those guys have got their names in the opening credits there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So after tea time, everybody's relaxing by the fireplace. Everything's quote-unquote back to totally normal, having a totally normal one. And Cliff ponders, does this mean we're cannibals now?
Shut the fuck up!
Someone at least tell me what it tasted like.
He'd need to eat a Daytona Buick in order to be a cannibal.
Every line of dialogue, man. How did they do it?
Can you imagine anyone other than Brendan Fraser saying these lines though? Like, I can't.
Yeah.
Like, it's just his voice.
I know.
Fucking, he is Cliff.
Because even though these lines are funny, it's like there's still that element of pathos. We know how desperate Cliff is to be able to feel things, and this is just another example of that. The fact that it's, you know, wanting to experience the taste of brains just because everybody else did.
Going back to the episode where he faked the orgasm.
Right, exactly. It's the classic Cliff Steele FOMO, if you will. But another great moment of pathos here, and the real kicker in this scene, is when Larry just suddenly muses that, you know, when I was a zombie, it was actually better in a way, because all I cared about was looking for brains. It was actually sort of peaceful because I wasn't thinking about anything else. It's like, oh, Larry, somebody cut this guy a break, for fuck's sake.
And everyone in the room is like, same energy, but no one's saying it.
Yeah. Next we get Madame Rouge reading over the letter that Niles has left to her. And it's apparently a letter from Niles while he was still at the Bureau of Oddities, is what I gathered from it. And he insists that Laura DeMille be quote-unquote terminated immediately, which could mean just be fired. Or
Probably
it could
not.
mean the other thing that terminated means. So yeah, and it insists that she is evil incarnate, essentially. And Laura is really upset about this. And again, back to what I was saying earlier, sad Michelle Gomez breaks my heart. I don't like it. Meanwhile, Jane is burning her creepy Bob Ross fan art and trying to deal with this whole thing. I think we skipped over, actually, earlier in the episode, Cliff was insisting to her that he tells her that he spoke to Niles' ghost. And Jane obviously has a hang-up at the moment that she wants to be able to say things to Niles that she never got the chance to say. And of course, when she did get the chance, she was a zombie and could not hold a conversation. And so now she's trying to take Cliff's advice by talking to him and then burning him. And I do love the switcheroo of the meaning of the phrase "eat me" here.
Eat me, yeah.
Yeah, it's really great. And Diane Guerrero, as always, knock it out of the park. Again, great emotional performance in this fucking mad episode about zombies and werebutts. Cliff, meanwhile, is checking his symptoms online, as we've all done and all regretted.
Cliff does not understand the internet. He'd never click on pop-ups.
Yeah, immediately sees a pop-up for an online pharmacy. No prescription. Fuck yeah. And then Larry, as if things couldn't get any worse, suddenly has acquired a bulge of a kind. Either a very large tumour or he's about to give birth to something.
Man, he's got a spirit in the oven.
Yep.
See, I kind of like the pregnancy metaphor, because this whole puking thing is like the whole morning sickness type deal. So I don't know if that's what's happening. I think I said in our previous episode, this doesn't correspond to anything that I've personally read in the comics, so I'm not sure what they're doing with this.
It's in the next episode when he says, if you turn out to be a rat, like...
Yeah, Colonel Whiskers, the return.
Fucking love that guy.
Vic, somber moment with him as well. He's in his room, looking in a mirror with the other mirror up against his face. Oh man, that is so... Yeah, it's a shed a tear moment. Again, how does this fucking show do this? How does it keep weighing up these emotional scenes with complete nonsense?
But we're going to explore that moment in particular, like in the next episode as
we
well.
sure are, yeah.
In another ludicrous situation.
Yup. So meanwhile, down in the lab, Laura DeMille is watching the Sisterhood of Dada film again.
I thought you were about to do the monster mash there, sorry. Like,
Rita comes in and is trying to badger her for info about what she might have found out about herself. Eventually reads the room and senses that Laura is not in the mood for conversation right now. Offers her some oatmeal cookies.
Yep.
And again, Michelle Gomez's delivery of, that would be nice. Oh, give her a hug. And as Rita exits, Laura notices something in the film to the left of the stage in a glass cabinet is our old pal, Rita Farr.
World-renowned time traveller.
And that's the end, except...
Post-credit zombie butt.
it's so good. And where was it going?
Heading into Cloverton, because of course.
Because that town hasn't had it bad enough.
I can't wait for the season 5 or 6 play that they do about zombie butts. Like, that's going to be amazing.
Fantastic. So, I'm just going to go straight ahead and say, in the context of our classic and very easy to understand Mr. Robot themed rating system, I'm scoring this episode a big fat 9 5s out of 9, because this was everything I love about this show.
Craig, this might come as a surprise to you, but I'm going to also score this episode in line with our Mr. Robot themed scoring system. 9 5s out of 9.
Set faces to stunned.
Me, I'm just going to say...
Wait, I can see the
I
subtitles.
can see the subtitles. He said 7 007s out of 7. Well, I speak zombie. And by that I don't just mean my drunken karaoke when I get up and try and belt out the Cranberries. Alright guys, well that was what I would call a classic episode of this show, a vintage episode. This show is great, it keeps knocking it out of the park, it does
Doom
nothing
Patrol's
wrong.
good as well. Like,
Ayo. Good ep.
good ep.
Well, I don't know about you guys, I'm exhausted. I'm going to wash the taste of brains out of my mouth. Maybe a wee refresher at the bar. Care to join me?
See you there.
Sure,
Probably
I think
my
it's
round,
my
it
round.
usually is.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, James said it's his round. Can he take it back?
We'll see you guys right back here after these short messages.
Brains!
What are you drinking tonight, Craig? What are you having?
Well, James, as you well know, the last few weeks for me have been a real trial. And I mean that literally for the benefit of the podcast listeners. I was on jury service for 3 whole weeks.
Kafkaesque.
It's totally Kafkaesque, as Jesse Pinkman would say. And since I came back to work, everything at work is what can only be described as an absolute shit show. Without going into detail, all of the networks for my work, let's just say they suffered a thing happened, a bad thing.
They done a Facebook.
They did have Facebook that's been going on for about 3 weeks now, and so I had 3 weeks of jury service, and now I've come back to work and it's like entering the twilight zone. I just have no idea what I'm doing. Basically, nothing's working anymore, and every day is like a new slew of emails from management saying, okay, here's a new way to do things while we try and get things fixed, and it's like continually adapting day by day to find new ways to work, and it's total chaos. It's getting so bad that quite honestly, I wish I was back on the jury. Know of any jury gigs going? Craig Woods, professional juror, I'm your guy.
So, what are you drinking, Craig?
Oh, that was a long-winded way to say. I know what you're thinking. Surely you need a drink. Well, I do, but unfortunately, I'm also working at 6 a.m. tomorrow. So basically, in order to keep myself awake, because I'm so knackered from the past few weeks, that I'm on the tea.
Yet another reason why capitalism can go suck a fuck. Am I right?
You're not wrong, Alan. You're not wrong. I mean, I like tea, but I would still like to be drinking alcohol.
You'd like to, given the choice, you would drink tea, not be forced to drink tea.
Oh yeah, let them drink tea.
Yeah, as Marie Antoinette famously said.
What about you, Alan? What are you drinking this evening?
A famous soft drinks company's most, it's like the utmost version of their drink. Like, that's what I'm drinking.
Like an HBO.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or a Von Sydow.
I'm not understanding a word of what you guys are saying. Is this part of the tribute to the sisterhood of Dada in this conversation?
Well, it makes perfect sense to me, but that's maybe because I'm deep into several bottles of Slavery Apologists Green King's East Coast
The good
IPA.
kind of slavery apologists, we need to be clear.
The good kind, they apologise for their own slavery historically.
That sponsorship is coming our way any day now.
So yeah, I'm having it Tron style, not the Hamiltron, the other Tron, and paying tribute to the Tron Theatre Bar, our spiritual home with plenty East Coast IPA. It's lovely.
Who knows, maybe one day we'll be able to return to the Tron, not the Hamiltron, the other one.
I was going to say, surely there must be an fSobriety works night out coming up.
Yeah. Just the three of us, not the Hamiltron, she can't take her anywhere.
No, that has been proven.
Yeah, we have a little kind of, like, I'm avoiding her, so, you know.
Yeah, what's going on there, Alan?
No reason. I didn't do anything. No.
You guys been imbibing anything other than drinks in terms of popular culture?
Well, here's the funny thing. I'm very aware that on this podcast I usually have a lot to say about other stuff, and I'm sure there's a portion of podcast listeners out there are quite happy for me to shut the fuck up.
Not just the podcast listeners. Oh.
Yes, thanks, Alan. This one is for them, because I have been so waylaid with the shit show of work and the shit show of jury service. I've just been too busy and knackered to really pay attention to much else. So I'm happy to sit back and listen to what you guys have been imbibing culturally.
On the plus side, you did get to send a man to his death, so, you know.
I mean, we've all done that. It's just that Craig got to do it legally. I, for one, have decided to catch up with the rest of the civilized world and have been watching Squid Game. On Netflix. I've 5 episodes in it at the moment, and it's fun. It's good fun.
I've heard only good things, and by that I mean the entire fucking world has been telling me only good things about it intensively for what seems like the better part of a year. I know it hasn't been, but it's felt like it.
I was walking through St Enoch Square yesterday, the day before, and there was two lassies walking like kind of side by side with me almost, like, and one was obviously talking to the other one about it, and she's going, no, you need to watch it. I mean, I don't like things with subtitles, but it's so fucking good that it didn't even bother me. And I was like, Squid Game. So the whole world is talking about it.
I don't need to explain to the listeners what Squid Game is. I'm just going to say 5 episodes in, really enjoying it.
PlayStation fucks.
You did not hear it here first.
You heard it here, probably close to last. I finished the latest season of Archer, which finishes with quite a touching tribute to Jessica Walters. So if you're going to watch Archer, have a wee tissue at the ready for the last episode. Anything else? Oh yeah, so Craig.
James.
I know that you love D&D, right? You won't stop talking about Dungeons and Dragons.
It's well known to listeners of this podcast that it is my number one favourite thing, yes.
Yeah, but just shut the fuck up about Dungeons and Dragons for 1 minute, right?
First of all, gay. Second of all, stupid.
For the benefit of the listeners, we're recording this on the 13th of October.
Spooky.
And
reveal all our secrets, why don't you?
In 1 week's time, October 21st is a magical date, because not only is Dune finally released in cinemas in the UK, not only is Young Justice Season 4 premiering, but Critical Role Campaign 3 is premiering on Twitch and YouTube. It's been a long time coming for fans of Critical Role, for fans of great storytelling in general. You could, if you've got 4 hours a week to spare, and frankly, if you listen to this podcast, you probably have. If you've got 4 hours a week to spare,
we hope you've got 4 hours a week to spare.
If you get 4 hours a week to spare to watch people playing Dungeons and Dragons, you may think that sounds like a shite time. I'm not doing it, but it is massively popular for a reason, and they're about to start a new campaign. It's a good place to jump in. If you've never watched it before, I would say give it a shot. I'm super fucking excited about it. So,
Sweet.
October 21st, Campaign 3 of Critical Role is starting, and yeah, Probably not going to talk about it much on the podcast because...
Unless I start watching it as well, or listening to it, in which case we can override Woodsy's objections.
Yes!
I do not have any objections. I'm happy for you to talk about it.
God, stop talking about D&D, Craig.
Sorry, everyone.
The one other thing I noticed in the pop culture landscape, which was there's a new old David Bowie album coming out.
Oh, I saw something about that, yeah.
Yeah. Spotify just sprung up. You know, Spotify will just spring up new releases from artists that you listen to a lot. When it does something like it says new release from Little Sim's Venom from the movie Venom, and I was like, what?
It's
Yes.
a remix, and it's
somebody made that joke that you made for the podcast into a reality.
Yeah. Incredible. But yeah, it's a new release from David Bowie, and I was like, Tupac, is that you? But yeah, so it's apparently a previously recorded but unreleased album of his that he'd done, where he'd re-recorded a bunch of like early David Jones songs.
Right, it was like early 2000s.
Yeah. So yeah, I listened to the single, and it's very good because David Bowie could shit on a piece of vinyl, and I'd be like, "Oh, it's good though, eh? It's good."
He quite often did, let's be honest.
Yes, especially in the 90s.
Yes. Well, I would say 80s. Well, no, actually, you know what? That's a complicated conversation.
When was Tin Machine? Was that
late
80s
80s,
and
early
90s?
90s? Yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Tin Machine.
But it sounds a lot like it would have been a cut off from The Next Day or something. So it's going to have that sort of a vibe. But apparently, and this is the thing that excited me, the guy that played saxophone, whose name escapes me, and I do apologise, jazz fans, but the guy that played saxophone on Black Star.
Oh, you mean Donnie McCausland, do you? You there with your Bowie fan, bitch.
Said that there was a bunch of unreleased cuts that they recorded for Black Star, and they're probably going to release them.
Cool.
So if you're a fan of the Black Star era David Bowie, which I think it's one of his best albums,
Agreed.
There's probably more of that on the way.
That's pretty cool.
It's an fSobriety exclusive.
Yeah, nobody's talking about this. This is the exclusive content that people flock to this podcast for.
Yeah.
Fingers
Sobriety.
firmly on the pulse.
Alan, since Craig's been doing nothing but jury duty and work, what's been catching your eyes?
Following on from his great love of D&D and tabletop RPGs in general, I've been kind of immersed in another one of Craig's great loves, which is computer games. We both know how much he plays computer games these days.
I don't hold on a sec. Let me just interject here. I don't have any animosity towards computer games. I'm just not a gamer.
Shut up! You don't like music.
Anyway, continue.
You don't like Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, I say you're off this podcast. I've had enough of your snatch. As my grandma used to say.
Craig's going to report you to the Hamilton.
Aye, the Hamilton's going to sort you out.
Okay, take it back. I had a very good week selling comics. Like, my best week ever. Like, I had such a good fucking week.
Best week ever.
Nice.
Kilmarnock, shout out to the people of Kilmarnock.
Right. That's the first time that anyone has ever said those
Yeah,
words.
no, those words have never been uttered.
But Kilmarnock train station, on the actual platform, it was like Harry Potter-esque, and fuck Harry Potter obviously, but that's how kind of weird it was, and a lot of people just bought a lot of comics, and the people of Ayrshire and the people of Fife are my favourite people in Scotland at the moment, because they just seem to love their comics. So to celebrate, I bought myself a Nintendo Switch. Other portable games, handheld gaming consoles are available, I realise that. I never had like a handheld one, like I never had a Game Boy or fucking anything like that, but I bought the Switch when it came out at first, and then I was really skint a year or so back, 18 months ago, and I fucking sold it, and I was gutted because playing Skyrim on the toilet is possibly the highlight of mankind's
There's
achievements.
something about that title though, Skyrim, that makes me think that on the toilet is the perfect place to play it.
You didn't so much take an arrow to the knee as you just took a shite in the toilet.
Yes, I used to be an adventurer like you. Someone stole my sweet roll. But I bought the new Metroid Dread game, which I'd only ever played one Metroid game before on the Super Nintendo, and I didn't play it very much, so I didn't have like much nostalgia for it or whatever, but I'm fucking absolutely loving it. It's a really good game, and I advise anybody who likes computer games to go out there and enjoy the hell out of it.
Awesome. Look at us covering the world of games.
Yeah, Gamergate, motherfuckers.
First of all, games.
Oh, and the other thing that I've been doing is, in preparation for the new Amazon show, I've been reading the Robert Jordan Wheel of Time books. So I've started at the very beginning because I've never read any of them before. Like, it seems to be never ending because it's massive, but like I'm a small chunk to be into the first one, The Eye of the World, and after what seemed like an interminably fucking long intro, I'm really digging it, so looking forward to the show as well.
Speaking of TV shows based on books, I've not watched any of it yet, but I'm curious to check out The Foundation, based on the Isaac Asimov books.
Is that on Apple TV or some shit? Like,
yeah, it's on.
you
are a pirate. But I've heard from several reliable sources that it is pure snail's pace at start, so it's probably best to leave it for a bit and then just try and binge a bunch to help with the pacing. But I've heard other than that, it's really good. So,
no, I'm definitely.
Then again, I really enjoyed The Green Knight, so I'm not going to moan about pacing.
Still not watched that, man. Like, I was excited about that the fucking moment I heard it existed, and I've still not watched it.
How does it match up against the bank scene in the season 2 finale of Twin Peaks?
Oh, it's up there.
Audrey Hoy!
Who gives a fucking shit how long a bank scene is?
Well, I think what we've done there is we've taken a big chunk of bread and we've smooshed it around the soup pot of current popular culture happenings and eaten it up.
That really is an elegant turn of phrase there you just used there for an analogy. Hats off. I can see why you have your own podcast.
I think that wraps it up for another episode of fSobriety.
Oh, I quit.
There's no music.
No, there is literally no music anymore. It has all died in reaction to that comment.
Only 40 years after Don McLean said it as well.
He was predicting it.
Well, he was a world-renowned time traveller.
Speaking of which, why don't we talk about
Doom Patrol Season 3, Episode 5, Dada Patrol? Doom Patrol, Season 3, Episode 5, Dada Patrol. Directed once again by Kristen Wendell. It is written by Shoshana Shachi. A name which even Sean Connery could pronounce correctly. Almost. She was also responsible for the writing of Paw Patrol, Fun Shish Patrol, and Finger Patrol. So, again, clearly a writer with some pedigree on this show.
Mm-hmm. Especially after Paw Patrol.
Yeah. A-cap.
You have got all my dogs barking.
I'd just like to make a point which I found quite interesting. I don't know if this is deliberate trolling on the part of the writers or if this was just accidental, because I know that the Twitter account for Doom Patrol has had a pop at this before. But this episode begins with Jane listening to Kids from Yesterday by My Chemical Romance, which seems fitting given that Gerard Way is responsible for writing inferior Doom Patrol copy The Umbrella Academy.
He also wrote Doom Patrol in the 2000s.
Really?
Yeah.
There was a whole like young animal imprint from DC, which is curated by Gerard Way, which had Doom Patrol, Mother Panic, Cave Carson has a cybernetic eye, and there was a fourth title which I can't remember. But he's done quite a bit with Doom Patrol.
I've never read any of his Doom Patrol stuff because I've not read any DC or Marvel comics since the early 90s. You know, I did know that he had done some of it, but yeah, you can see that I think that was for him kind of a dry run for what he ended up doing with what I'm going to call the Underwhelm Umbrella Academy.
I had no idea he wrote Doom Patrol, and that kind of undermines my joke a little. But having said that, the Doom Patrol Twitter did have a pop at the Umbrella Academy Twitter account, so I think it still fits.
Before. Yeah, there's some good snark from the Doom Patrol Twitter account. I do enjoy it. Whoever the, let's face it, crushingly underpaid interns are who are doing that stuff, hats off to you, you're doing good work. I don't have a problem with this, by the way, except for the fact I sort of assumed Jane had better taste in music, that's all I'm saying.
Hey, everyone needs to be a little emo now and again.
But yeah, Jane is, and we do actually see the record spinning, so it is diegetic and it's canon. Jane owns a My Chemical Romance album. So that's me, Telt.
I'm not even going to lie, I fucking loved The Black Parade. I thought it was a great album. Like, really loved it. Went to see them, and Grant Morrison was also in attendance at the exhibition centre because Gerard Way was so excited he fanboyed the fuck out on stage, saying that Grant Morrison was there. Yeah.
Cringe patrol.
I mean, say what you want about Gerard Way. This isn't even a joke in case you think it's going to be. He's panned out a lot of very, very successful albums and apparently a lot of very successful comic books, so fair play to him.
And if it wasn't for Aqua Teen Hunger Force, he would also have had a really successful cartoon, probably.
Let's never forget the poor undersung heroes of mainstream success. Alright, so Jane is burning her creepy Bob Ross fan art. But meanwhile, well, this, I guess it is part of the underground, but it's the memory of Kay's childhood home, where we have seen that Kay continues to live. Dr. Harrison is apparently having a therapy session with Kay. A lot going on in this scene. Yeah, well, I guess we should just get into it. The first thing I'll say, though, it's interesting what they're doing here with Kay, and I like the metaphor of Kay wanting to grow up as being symbolic of Kay healing herself, and her saying she wants to go up to the top, essentially, and be her own primary. It seems to be that's where they're going with this story. But I did also make the note that this is quite a handy way they've come up with this, because it does help explain this young actress, Sky Roberts, no longer looking quite like the kid she was in seasons 1 and 2.
I did make a note of it. You're getting so big. Like, no shit.
Yes, yeah. The symbolism is really cool, I think. The fact that she's outgrowing her shoes, that she needs to travel and she needs a new mode to travel to get out into the world. I think all of that stuff is really cool. They've been lucky with this young actress because she is really good. You know, quite often, and I know this is something we've commented on before in the podcast, sometimes you get kids casting things and they're just cast because kids have a certain look because, hey, they're kids. And then if they want the kids to stick around for a while, if the writers decide they're going to keep the character around, and then the original child actor sticks around for a bit too long, it turns out they're not that great an actor. Because, hey, getting kids to act is difficult.
That's why you should never work with them. Or animals.
This young actress is really good, though, and I remember when we were having our season 2 conversation, us both commenting on how great she was in that well scene.
She was good.
So it's no surprise that she's pulling this off here. It's all working. So I'm intrigued to see where they go with this. Clearly, they are building up to something towards the end of this season. I think that's clear.
This looks to me like an overarching series arc.
Maybe, yeah.
I can see Jane's arc ending with Kay becoming the primary.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I can't guess anything about this show.
No, I know.
Because it's going to surprise me at every turn.
I actually have a note about that further down the episode that I'll return to, but stick a pin in that for the moment.
Yeah.
But Dr. Harrison is not so sure about this, insists it's not such a great idea, but Kay's insisting she wants to go and try new shoes on. Dr. Harrison says there are rules in place, and I really enjoy Jane's dialogue here, where she says it's her body, everything here is hers, and Jane now being very concerned with Kay's autonomy. And especially when you consider where Jane was in season 2, when she did have that existential moment with Larry when they were making their way to the well in Arkansas. Jane says out loud, I don't want to disappear. And she actually has that existential thing, like she doesn't want to die. But there's clearly some part of her that's like, she's willing to sacrifice herself now for Kay after everything that they've gone through. But of course, the thing is, we have been told, I think we've been intimated to in recent episodes, that Jane seems a bit more permanent. Considering Jane was allowed to go to the afterlife with Kay, and it seems like the others weren't, or that they were subdued in some way. I guess we'll see how it gets fleshed out, but there seems to be this kind of idea that Jane and Kay are sort of merging in a way.
I hate to always go back to Mr. Robot. That's a lie. I don't hate to
No,
go
you
back to
don't.
Mr. Robot. But there's big mastermind energy here in this whole thing. Spoilers for Mr. Robot. I'm talking end of Mr. Robot. You know, she's like, I can let go.
Yeah, that's actually a good call. That's a good comparison. Dr. Harrison is insisting that Kay cannot make these decisions alone, and Jane says, well, she's not, I'm here. Kay's getting very upset. Jane's clear that this is a good thing, that we should want her to heal. I think Dr. Harrison is going through the same thing Jane was going through in season 2, but she's adopting a more aggressive stance about it. Say, we're all a part of this, these decisions affect all of us. So there's a real existential thing here about the fates of all these personalities, and it raises the question once again, if Kay does reach a point in her life where she feels she no longer needs these coping mechanisms, what happens to all these personalities? And we had the conversation when we were talking about season 2, like, it is legitimately devastating when Baby Doll dies, and when Flaming Katie dies, because you do feel you've legitimately lost a character. You know, these people seem real. Because they are effectively real. So yeah, that's something to chew on. Meanwhile, Vic and Cliff down in the lab.
Was a graveyard smash.
I do enjoy that quick shot here of the milk carton with Rita's nemesis missing. And Cliff is cooing over the baby pics of baby Rory and noting that those steel biceps are developing already.
It's got to be a picture.
I love that bit when Cliff says he's going to be a great pitcher or whatever he wants to be, no pressure. Like, God bless you, Cliff.
Yeah, he's growing.
LMFAO. Vic said, do you even know what that means? Love my fucking awesome offspring. Good shit.
So good.
So we get this casino pop up and Vic is quick to intervene, saying, dude, what are you, a boomer from the 90s? Don't click on that shit. And this is where we get the answer to my conundrum from the previous episode about how exactly Cliff ingests anything. So there's a bunch of plasma being fed straight in, it seems like, through a funnel into Cliff's brain, through which Vic is supplying the pills, carefully dosed. Cliff's dodgy pills. And then, unfortunately, Vic gets distracted.
Booyah! Grid gets activated again. Cliff takes the opportunity.
Yeah, I've written Cliff goes full Requiem for a Dream.
2 to 3 months?
Pumps, yeah. 2 to 3 months, can't wait that long. Get the full dosage down there. And my favourite line here, eat shit, Parkinson's.
I'm sure those drugs won't have any side effects.
It'll be all fine. That won't be a plot point later. So we get another Silas appearance. And we get a very remorseful Silas, the most remorseful he's ever been.
Which means the next time we see him, he's going to be a complete dick, obviously.
The Silas pendulum has swung to remorse.
I know that we're like halfway through the season already.
Yeah, I know.
And it's season 3 already, but what I think we should do is we should institute a new segment of fSobriety called Silas Bingo, where we try and figure out whether he's going to be a good guy or a bad guy.
I'm here for it.
I'll need to come up with a new jingle.
Bingo, bingo.
But yeah, he's trying to be very understanding with Vic here, and he has that line where he says, if this is something you don't want anymore, sort of implying he'll try and do something about it. This is something that we will come back to towards the end of the episode. But in this episode, I did write in my notes here that it seems like he's unsure about saying that this is who he is, but he says it anyway. It's like he's trying to convince himself.
It may be what he is, but is it why he is?
Right, yeah. And after he ends the call, we even see he does have another mirror moment. He casts a look into the mirror, and he does have that, what seems like a moment of doubt there. Meanwhile, up in Larry's room, Rita in her hazmat suit is investigating Larry's radioactive body for the tumour/pregnancy phenomenon, which seems to have disappeared. And so Rita says this is good news because it means he's probably not dying. That is until they see.
This is more A+ acting from April Bowlby. Reaction to the head.
This cartoon moving bump around Larry's body, which is equal parts disturbing and hilarious. And Rita insists Larry shouldn't panic. And while this is going down, Laura DeMille calls a team meeting, to which Rita takes the front, says, "You're not a team leader, we're not even a team." Sort of recalling the old the season 1 moment when Cyborg was the one trying to call team meetings.
And yet, like that moment, everyone says we're not a team, and yet turns up for the team meeting.
Yeah, and Jane has we have to call it this line here, this meta line, where she says, "Okay, Doctor Who."
Yeah, Jane's obviously heard about Doctor Who but not watched it, because if she had, she would know that she was the master, not Doctor Who. Come on, Jane.
Some Pete, Cliff and Jane bants in this scene as well. Pair of rogues. So Laura explains that during the raid on the ant farm from season 1, that the Sisterhood of Dada were freed from their cells, and another take a drink from Michelle Gomez throwing a teacup. She makes it clear how dangerous these people are, and she wants the Doom Patrol to track them down and kill them. She makes no bones about that, to which they all protest. They're not the kind of people who kill people, although
Unless
Cliff
they're
corrects,
Nazis.
unless they're Nazis or butts.
butts.
I was hoping or expecting somebody would say, or Nazi butts.
Maybe they just didn't want to give away the next butt appearance. Nazi zombie butts. I'm here for it.
Nazi zombie werebutt. They're all a bit confused about what Dada means, and Rita has to clarify. It's a pretentious art movement from the early 20th century, just so people could make crude nudie films and say it was art.
See, I thought it was when you did something and then the consequences of it came back. And...
That's karma, dick slit.
So they've left behind this graffiti in their cells about the eternal flagellation, or as Jane would have it, excuse me, as Jane and Cliff would have it, the eternal flatulation. I'm loving the school kid giggles between these two here.
The fart noises that seem to go on for way too long is just brilliant.
So apparently that message and symbols have been turning up in other cities across the globe. Darren Jones had apparently tracked the Sisterhood of Dada to their current location. Not far from Cloverton, it seems. And they've left this message, join us. And Laura's sussed out, or she thinks she's sussed out, that the reason she's here is to stop the eternal flagellation. And it's quite clear that the Sisterhood of Dada know who she is. So she has to insist that the Doom Patrol go and join. Or at least observe and report. And I love how Laura had insisted that they raise a hand to raise questions, and Jane sulkily raises a hand at this point, says, if we do this, will you go away forever? And when she says yes, they're all right, good, that's all we needed to hear.
Because the quote-unquote Doom Patrol, ultimately what they want is just to be left alone.
Yes. It's like, just geese peace. Well, they all agree except Rita, who insists, you're not team leader. Laura reveals Rita's presence in the glass cabinet in the Sisterhood of Dada film. And for Rita, this only confirms that she is a world-renowned time traveller. And meanwhile, it's all aboard the Doom bus, while Cliff draws dicks on the condensation of the windows. And asks Cyborg if he's extra shiny today. And insists his hands are amazing.
Before we go on with this, I don't know if it's just me or if anyone else has this, but every appearance of the Doom bus just fills me with joy, because I love that they're superhero transporters, just a school bus painted black.
It's fantastic.
It's so good.
So Vic quickly realises that Cliff has taken all the dopamine pills, and Cliff is out of control, notices Larry has quote-unquote an exit, and Jane chants, square as shit.
Square as shit.
Which naturally brings them crashing into the middle of a foggy glade.
Here's the thing that I literally just thought of this second while we've been talking. I didn't have it in my notes. But so Jane's making the fart jokes and the fart noises and laughing at that. She's shouting squish it about an exit. Is she acting more like a child as this goes on?
That's a good call. Yeah, is this a sign of Kay making her way to the surface?
Yeah.
I like it. Cliff is overjoyed, apparently, at how grey the fog is. Cyborg notes that Grid has no signal, so they're on their own, and he insists they take it quietly, to which Cliff excitedly shouts, let's go, motherfuckers, and runs into the fog. Right, the pathos here, though, of this really sad conversation between Jane and Larry when she insists he stay with the bus. And he's like, I'm not useless just because I don't have the spirit. And then there's just that awkward pause, and he goes, but you're right, I should stay with the bus. Jane also has a great summary here of their situation when Larry says, why does this stuff happen to us? And she provides what would be a great synopsis of the season so far.
Because no one else gets sent on a mission by a time-traveling bird lady to go hunt down some art freaks who pissed off a half-man, half-butt monster who may be trying to destroy the world.
Yeah, got it.
So while they're having that adventure, Rita and Laura are down in martinis.
There's no problem that can't be solved with a martini or three.
And Rita knows a thing or three about that. Yeah. And Laura is deeply depressed that her body elephant is deceased, which seems like this is the sketch that Monty Python should have made. And she shows Rita the letter from Niles, and Rita gives it the pish posh, insisting it means nothing. More pathos from Michelle Gomez here. I'm just going to say it again. This stuff is legitimately heart-wrenching about how sad she is that all the roads lead to nowhere. She's got no idea who she is. She doesn't know what her favourite song is, her favourite colour, if she's ever loved, ever been loved. Like, fucking make this stop. For some reason, because it's Michelle Gomez and I'm so used to her just being so kind of eccentric and larger than life, which is not to say she's not in this show, but the fact that she's emoting so much with this dialogue that is hitting me right in the feels where it needs to hit is really upsetting. There's a part of me just like, stop torturing me like this. Michelle Gomez is supposed to be funny. Give me funny Gomez, god damn it.
It's even like the way she's kind of like hamming it up by being like facing into the side of the couch and being like, oh yes, and it's still really fucking heartbreaking. Aye,
my heart can't take it.
Yeah.
But she's really, and again, it's hammering home the point that she cannot possibly conceive of herself being the person that Niles writes about in this letter. And it's at this point I'm like, you fuckers, writers of this show, you're going to turn it around and make her evil at some point, and you're going to make me really upset that it's happened.
Yep. Diabolical.
So Rita's still got a dog with a bone with this whole time traveller shtick. She says, I'm going to be a world-renowned time traveller. I have allies in the afterlife. And it's clear she has to believe that her destiny is going to reveal itself in some way. And I've made a note here that I really love the way they've played the long game with Rita. And we did talk about this in our Season 2 discussion about if this was a more conventional show about super beings, then Rita would have conquered her abilities by now. She would have conquered them at the latest early in Season 2, you know. But all of Season 2 was a build-up of her still being understanding where her anxieties came from, but still being unable to reconcile with them, which I think is a reality for people in real life, you know. Knowing where these things come from is only the start of it, you know. It's only the start of the battle.
Knowing is half the battle.
So yeah, I really admire the writing of Rita in the sense that they've really allowed her to explore that area, that really traumatic area where you are desperately needing to transcend the things you know you need to transcend, but somehow are still relying on false coping mechanisms to do it. Same energy, that's all I'm saying.
Rita discovering her power, such as it is hilarious, because she obviously makes a huge step forward in this episode and at the end, but it's unconnected to her actual superpower.
Right.
Because she still can't control that, so she's just like, it's like, well, that's just something to be dealt with or ignored.
Yep.
My destiny is this now. I'm a time traveller.
Yep. She's basically just deflected her struggle to master her own power with just finding a new power, a new purpose. And it's like, Rita. It's like you've replaced alcoholism with a gambling habit, you know. And she actually says here, there's a line here that's right on the nose, where she says, and also I drink and make friends. It's like, you're forcing it, Rita. I enjoy Michelle Gomez being really fond of that cocktail that Rita pours her.
Yep, she's not a vodka person, but she's clearly a gin person.
Yes. But then immediately goes melancholy again and says, but her own destiny is on ice. And that's when Rita reveals the time machine piece that she pilfered. Is Laura a bit mean to Rita later because in this moment she's thought, why didn't you tell me this earlier? And it's that way that drunkenness has a way of, you know, making people a bit more honest when they're a bit heavily inebriated.
Very possibly. But on the other hand, totally on Rita's side at this point, because at the time you're like, nope, don't trust her one bit, break her time machine. And now she's just like, yeah, I'll be fine, you're great. No, here, I'm drunk, I broke your time machine and I can fix it. Like, yeah you know what? Yeah. That's understandable.
We've all been there.
Alright, meanwhile, Cliff is wandering around in the fog and he encounters... Guys, what does he encounter?
A bicycle covered in jelly?
That's a very important message for him too.
Toad, Bonnet, Bee, Thatcher's blue bum.
Obviously. Makes so much sense.
I thought I was going to be sick watching this.
And I love this because, as far as I'm aware, that specific thing does not turn up in Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol, but it's exactly the kind of thing Grant Morrison would have thrown in one of those issues, and so it just feels entirely true. And so you might as well start taking a drink, guys, for every time I say this from here on in, because the rest of this episode is such a delight for me, because as I said at the top of this episode, this is really mining from a very specific point in Grant Morrison's run that is among my favourite stuff. And the fact we're getting these characters revealed to us in this gradual way is just so fucking delightful. I could tell, like, okay, this is the start of it. We're going to start seeing these characters. I was on the edge of my seat with both excitement and hilarity and just absolutely, like a kid just lapping this shit up. Like Kay in the sweet shop later lapping up that milkshake. Mm-hmm. Everything about this, just so great.
Her milkshake brings all her personalities to the yard.
But Cliff's reaction is, I am so fucking her.
This is like dropping acid and watching The Wizard of Oz and listening to Dark Side of the Moon at the same time. If you're going to be absolutely out your face anywhere, it might as well be in the realm of the Sisterhood of Dada, because everything's fucked up regardless.
In the middle of the fog, he sees this floating icon, we'll call it for now, which repeats what he says. And he says, "Did you just?" And then the thing says, "Did you just?" And it starts laughing. I was pissing myself at that. It's like, how does this show manage to get such great humour out of such simple bullshit?
So I was watching it with the subtitles on, right? Because whenever I'm taking notes for something, I always have the subs on in case I miss a bit of dialogue that's important. And that icon is referred to as tree. So I don't know if that's important, but it's a tree.
Put a pin in that. So he finds in the fog what appears to be an ice cream van, and there's a young woman inside, apparently asleep. Cliff is quickly diverted by noticing cherry two-ball screwballs, fuck yeah.
Pulls the doors off.
Pulls the doors off the ice cream van, and inside, before he can go any further, let's describe it as he encounters a kind of holographic swirl with a crouched figure of a woman in the centre.
My notes say in giant writing with 3 exclamation marks, time tunnel.
Nice, yeah, that's a nice reference. I made note here, I'm pretty sure this is deliberate, and this is the first of several references in the episode to actual works of Dadaist art, and I am sure I've missed some. So I'm sure this is going to be an episode, and probably there's people online already or on Reddit or will be talking about what the references are. But this, the swirl with the woman inside it, the way she's positioned, this is actually entirely evocative of an artwork called Optophone 1 by Francis Picabia, and it literally just looks like that. And I'm going to put a link to it in the episode notes. But Francis Picabia was one of the early Dadaists, and he, during this period when he produced that particular artwork, he was doing a lot of these kind of things where he was combining kind of mechanical structures and geometric patterns with contortions of the human body. And it was one of those things that, on the one hand, depending on what sort of mood he was in, being a Dadaist, he would say it was complete nonsense and meant nothing. But on the other hand, he would occasionally say, well, this is clearly a comment on the way in which an increasingly automated industrial capitalist society contorts human beings into forms that are completely unnatural. And during this same period, he produced a lot of work very similar to this. Like, there's a work he did that was like a clock, but the hands and the numerals were like human body parts and stuff like this. So I immediately noticed that one, and I was like, holy shit, that's really cool. And so I'm convinced there are way more than I've noted here. There is one other major one coming up that I'll definitely mention. But yeah, interestingly as well, the title Optophone 1, I don't believe Picabia ever offered an explanation for what that meant, but an optophone is an early 20th century device that was used, basically it would scan text and emit certain sounds that a blind person could interpret as words. And it's sort of, I feel like when Cliff meets the woman in the glass box later, about which more in a moment, that's kind of one part of what's going on, sort of analogously anyway, the way in which she helps him understand what's being said between the two of them. So yeah, that seemed like that was a reference I picked up on. I was really fucking excited about it, and I don't think that's referenced in the comics, so that's one the writers of the show have put in themselves. So nice. Pretty sweet. So incidentally, the young woman in the ice cream van and the woman we just saw in the swirl, they both do have definite identities. More on that in a moment. I'll talk about them as they are further revealed. But all I'm going to say is, when I saw the young woman in the ice cream van, I wet my fucking pants, because as much as I knew the Sisterhood of Dada were going to be in this season and it was going to be based on the Brotherhood of Dada from the comics, I just don't know if I really thought they would actually go with the, let's call them canonical Grant Morrison characters from that era, but they've actually done it. But yeah, I instantly recognised who that woman was supposed to be, and I was like, no fucking way, this is crazy. And then the other woman, it became clear to me as that scene unfolded who she was, but I'll mention it as we go in. So meanwhile, Jane is wandering in the fog as she hears Hammerhead shouting on her before she finally makes her way to a sweet shop. Really enjoying this, because I like the inference here that the personalities, on the one hand, are trying to protect Kay, but at the same time trying to protect themselves. and there is this discord between the rest of them and Jane, and that develops a bit more and certainly we're going to get more of it seems from the ending of the episode. Jane enters this, what would be my idea of heaven as a 7-year-old. It's pure beatus.
I don't know how to say this. Diabetes?
Diabetes?
That's it. Well, now we know what we're dealing with.
Jane is snooping around, and then this woman appears and asks Jane to close the door, mind the draft. This character, Shelley Byron, in the comics, in Grant Morrison's run, the character is actually called Byron Shelley, and they've gender flipped this character. What with the whole sisterhood of Dada carry on, I guess. Which is fine, and it actually really works. This character is cooler as a woman somehow. And obviously the name's Byron Shelley, you don't need to think too hard about where Grant Morrison got those names. But I'm loving everything this actress is bringing to this role.
Oh, yeah.
She is absolutely fantastic.
Yep.
And as soon as she appeared, just the way she's made up, and the suit and the hair, I was like, holy shit, she is great.
The hair is fantastic.
That is what I wanted for this character, and I did not know it. She tells Jane that the personalities can't bother her in here. Clearly she knows about the underground. And she says to Jane, you're inside my head, but you're the one I wanted to talk to. Now, I don't want to say too much about this at this point because I don't know if the show is going to go there or not. But in the comics, there is a thing that happens between Jane and the fog that's quite monumental at a certain point.
Oh.
But I don't know how far the show is going to go with it, so I don't really want to talk about it. But all I can say is the fact that these characters are having this conversation was giving me big squeeze. I was doing a big squee all the way through this scene.
I'm consulting the Hamilton about Win Everett at the moment.
Yeah, I looked up on IMDb and I don't think I've seen her in anything, but she's great.
She's fantastic.
Just bringing so much to this role in such a short space of time.
Wait, that can't be right.
She's like ages with us, apparently, is what I
Yeah,
noticed.
she's born in 1978. I thought she was about 20.
Yeah, I thought she was
God.
significantly younger. I was like, holy shit.
So see what happens when you take care of yourself.
Now I want to go back in time, so is it like not only for the Cheeto dick thing, but also to moisturise and get a bit more sleep.
Nail luck, Cheeto Dick.
Drink more water, but yeah, she is absolutely fantastic.
She is oozing charisma throughout these scenes. Yeah, I'm a wee bit in love with her in this role. She is absolutely great. So Jane is separated from all the personalities here, but she's not separated from Kay, who is sitting there munching down ice cream, having the time of her life. And Shelley tells her that there are some chocolate buttons for her as well. And I that's one of my favourite lines here. She asks Jane, care for a little red velvet? Which I'm enjoying the sapphic sexual innuendos going on here. I'm all about it. Some of the chat here, I've written down a few lines here because some of them are just great. When she's trying to get Jane to reveal who she is, who she really is, it says, oh, beguiling and perceptive. And all this stuff about something sweet and so on. I was like, oh, God. I'm not going to lie, I'm getting a bit hot under the collar watching this.
Yep.
Same.
So I'll briefly explain the character from Grant Morrison's run. The male version, Byron Shelley, but beyond that, it could feasibly just be the same character. But also known as the Fog, because she has the ability to transform into what's essentially a big psychic death cloud and absorb people en masse. Like, she can absorb entire towns, and the people who get caught up in the fog are basically seemingly stuck there for eternity.
She's like a really shit Danny the Street then, yeah?
She's like the anti-Danny, yeah.
Oh, that makes perfect sense for when she's talking about later what she did. Like, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, at the time that these characters are introduced in Grant Morrison's run, they're at the behest of Mr. Nobody. Mr. Nobody is the leader of the Brotherhood of Dada at that time. So essentially, in this season, Shelley is kind of acting in the Mr. Nobody role, which I think actually makes sense, because of all the characters in that iteration of the Brotherhood of Dada, none of them are really leader material, so it does sort of make sense that it would be her. So Vic, meanwhile, stumbles into a very enigmatic gentleman and tells him he's here to join the Sisterhood of Dada. And the gentleman in question asks Vic, why are you? So I'll just get this out of the way quickly. This character is called Frenzy in the comics. this is actually a pretty faithful adaptation.
He does have like bicycle wheels sticking out his back.
He does indeed. Yeah. His costume in the comics is a bit more ridiculous, but he does have the bicycle wheels on his back. Yeah. And Frenzy, like a lot of the characters Grant Morrison's run of this period, his powers are a bit opaque, apart from the fact he does have the ability to turn himself into a living cyclone, which you do see a hint of towards the end of this episode. It's interesting here that the writers of the show who are making him very much, in this episode anyway, kind of the spokesman for a lot of the very Dadaist ideas. You like what I did there? I was wondering if you'd pick up on that.
And the award for best joke of the podcast goes to Craig.
They've made him very much the mouthpiece of the, as close as they get in this episode anyway, to like, voicing some actual Dadaist philosophical ideas. And it's quite thrilling, I think, that they've done it in this scene with Vic. Because obviously with Dadaism, a lot of it is about questioning societal norms and questioning not just capitalism, but also questioning just social conventions generally. And we've discussed earlier in this episode how Vic is, if not outwardly, he's subliminally questioning a lot of things about himself, and about what he is, who he is, and indeed, as Frenzy is intimating here, why he is. And what I really love about the ensuing scenes between these two is that dynamic of this, taking the Dadaist ideas, the kind of anti-authoritarian ideas, the really rebellious, really audacious, subversive ideas, and applying it very specifically to a conversation between two black men of two, it seems, two very different statuses. And that's the kind of thing that once again could go so wrong, but somehow in this madcap batshit TV show, they managed to get it absolutely right. And I found the dialogue between these two really thrilling. By the way, I shouted out April Bowlby for the previous episode. I'm going to shout out Joyvin Wade for this episode because he is fucking great in these scenes.
Everything about these scenes is absolutely pitch perfect.
It really is. And I don't feel we shout out Joyvin Wade enough, but holy shit, he is so good, and he's particularly good in these scenes. He's got that perfect combination here of being legitimately aggrieved, but also that hint of this guy is getting at something that I know he's possibly right about. Like, it's that sense of, I'm angry at myself whilst being angry at this other guy. Yeah,
Frenzy, as I guess we'll call him now, definitely gets under Vic's skin like I don't think we've seen anyone in 3 seasons do.
Yeah, it's the most I think we've seen Vic react to somebody to this extent where he knows he's at a disadvantage.
It's the most we've seen Vic rattled, as Megadeth would say.
Hey, nice. Yeah, so it's good shit, and more on that in a moment. So meanwhile, Cliff finds himself in a space of absolute blackness, and he encounters this, we'll call it a glass case.
Of emotion.
I'm in a glass case of emotion!
In which the woman from earlier is encased. As we said earlier, she begins to allow him to understand what she's saying in Japanese.
It's when he says, holy shit, I speak Japanese in Japanese, though. It's fucking amazing.
It's so good.
It reminds me of Bedazzled, when he wishes to be rich or whatever, and he becomes a drug lord in Mexico, and he's like, what? Right. I can speak Spanish, and he's like, I'm allergic to shellfish and stuff like that. Like, it's just like Brendan Fraser calling back to that.
This is officially part of the Brendan Fraser multiverse.
So good, man.
So I'll spill the beans here on this character in the glass box. Get ready to take a drink for full Grant Morrisonism. Nobody else could have created this character. This character is the Quiz. She is an excessive hypochondriac, and she's constantly terrified about germs and about being in contact with other human beings.
She is a hero for nowadays, for sure.
Indeed, right. And so that's why, on the one hand, she's in the glass box here, although more about that glass box in just a second. So I immediately thought that, okay, that's got to be the Quiz. And then the more that it seemed like she was just doing things willy-nilly to help Cliff understand things, like, okay, yeah, that explains a lot. So the Quiz, her superpower is that she has every imaginable superpower, except when you think of what her superpower is, at which point she loses that superpower. And in the comics, there is an absolutely fantastic sequence where Cliff is fighting her. Sorry, no, it's actually Rebus fighting her, who's the negative man avatar at that point. Is fighting against her, and they're crashing their way through city streets fighting, and she's like pulling out all manner of superpowers, and Rebus is just having to shout out constantly just random superpowers so that he knows she will no longer have that superpower. And this goes on for pages and pages. Is at this point I'm like, I can't believe they've got the quiz in this show. What the fuck are they going to do with this character? So look forward to that, guys, because that's going to be a hoot.
As you say, the only person who could have fucking come up with that is Grant Morrison in it. Like, just absolute, an absolute love of the medium, but just knows how fucking ridiculous it is. Like, aye, amazing.
National treasure, Grant Morrison.
Notice how they're all fucking just like amazing Scottish people as well. Like, that's I never thought I'd find myself being like a nationalist. Do you know what I mean? But like,
I think we said
Michelle
this in our
Gomez,
previous episode as well. Just how many, just what magic our tiny country has given it to the world of entertainment and art. It's okay to recognise it. So meanwhile, back in the sweet shop, Shelley is still trying to get inside Jane's head. Who are you, Jane? Jane refers to the sweet shop as Shelley's weird Candyland fuckpad. Shelley sussies out that she's here for the eternal flagellation, and Jane says, okay, sure, what is that anyway? And that's when Shelley describes it as being what I used in my intro, vulture cleaning the carcass of an overfed sow, etc. I had to double check this just to be sure. It is not any line from any Dada's manifesto, but absolutely sounds like it is. To which Jane says, okay, so it's pretentious bullshit. And Shelley, and I love Shelley's reaction, says, sure, it can be pretentious bullshit. Maybe that's what I am. It's like, this is fucking amazing. Like, Marcel Duchamp would love this show. But Shelley starts to needle away at Jane, saying, you're limiting yourself and you're limiting Kay, which I think is going to be the in here, because Jane is all about what Kay wants at this point. And Shelley is insisting that Kay knows herself, but what about you, Jane? And so there's this idea that Shelley is coming in on the opposite side from where the personalities are. Jane is clearly in a grey area where she has to think about what Kay wants. And here is this powerful entity who has appeared before her saying the other personalities are out for themselves, essentially. You seem to know what Kay needs. I can help you get there, kind of thing. And it's one of those classic superhero, supervillain moments, really, where the devil comes and tempts the hero, you know. But I was enjoying every moment of it.
It's another great thing about this show that we've talked about so many times. It's not a superhero show, and yet it can do superhero moments so well.
It does them better than almost all the films and all the other TV shows.
It really does.
Like,
and I think because we've got so much real psychological and emotional baggage with Jane and Kay and the personalities, we really understand what the weight of this is. Like, you meet someone this powerful that can possibly solve this situation, it's like part of us all watching it are going, oh, maybe she can help. Like, there's that part of it's like, maybe it'll be okay. It's obviously not going to be okay, but, you know, you can see why Jane is tempted. Yeah, so she is telling Jane that she's scared, leaning back on old habits, and you think denying it makes you strong. Even a sorrowful and unquenchable thing must savour the taste of honey sometimes. Really enjoyed that line. Hashtag Shelley Byron Bay.
She pops that little candy out and
yep, more on that later.
In what can only be described as the most close-up magic trick that a bad guy could do, but it works.
Illusion, Michael. Trick is something a whore does for money.
Yep, so meanwhile back out in the fog, he's getting no further with this whole why is he conversation, but he insists, I'm cyborg, and I am because the world needs order and needs to be protected. To which Frenzy replies, these are rehearsed cliches from a half-man, half-tin can. And Vic says, what are you, half-man, half-bicycle? Frenzy tells him he's at least 3/5 man. But of course that's no importance to the great cyborg. And I really love all this. We know from the past couple of episodes that Cyborg is really leaning back on this idea that if he can see himself as a hero, then all the trauma that brought him here will have been worth it. That's kind of what he's banking on at the moment. And Frenzy is here to say to him, but you know down inside yourself, that you were kind of used, you were abused, and that you're now using this idea of yourself as some kind of saviour to the populace, that you're putting yourself above other people, and you're basically making yourself an instrument of, let's face it, let's call it what it was, a corporation who made you what you are. And man, the subtext here are so rich.
Which is a thing I meant to mention when we were talking about the previous episode, where when Vic finds out that Star Labs have, for all intents and purposes, sacked his dad, he can't believe it. He's like, "What? You had nothing to do with it." And it's like, that's how corporations work, Vic, and he's just starting to kind of figure it out.
The most naive line that he's ever said is like, "It's not fair." It's like,
well, his most naive line up until he says, "I'm here because the world needs orphans to be protected." The way Frenzy immediately calls it out. Shout out to this actor playing Frenzy. His name is Miles Missenden, I believe. This is a great performance. He's another one, just charisma all over the shop.
With a bicycle strapped to his back.
Yeah, he's able to deliver those lines with that costume.
Exactly. He's able to kind of deliver all this with absolute gravitas, despite looking like an absolute pantomime character.
All the while making that little clay effigy of Cyborg. Does he do that in the comics, or is this just a pure TV?
He doesn't. Since you've asked, I'll explain what that's about. This is another direct Dadaist reference. Right. I was going to leave it to the end because we get a clearer reference to it then.
When he sees what's written inside it?
Yes.
Right.
So it's a reference to both Tristan Tzara, who his most famous kind of work of literature was called The Approximate Man, or L'Homme Approximatif, to give it the proper French. And it's a poem essentially about alienation and about, it was about all the serious side of Dadaism. It was about all the very kind of anti-hierarchical, anti-bourgeois culture, anti-capitalism, and about, questioning all of the norms and all of the social conventions that we have to remember. Then the Dadaists came along. It was just after World War I. And I think people forget this because Dadaism is now one of those things that's just now looked upon as being a bit silly and a bit funny, which it is. But there was a serious side to it, which was these were a group of intellectuals and artists who came together and said, we've just had the Great War. We cannot allow this to happen again. And the only way we can ever stop war from happening again, as they saw it, was to get rid of all of the things that cause war, which was to start basically destabilizing and dismantling all the kind of hierarchical structures that lead to that situation. So getting rid of capitalism, getting rid of, patriarchal structures, getting rid of even starting to question the structure of language and structure of the understanding of, the way that we understood the natural world and the way that we understood the urban landscape. They genuinely thought that if you could create a kind of cultural revolution, it would necessitate a psychological revolution en masse that would ultimately lead to all of these things being dismantled. That was kind of their utopian vision.
And 100 years later, we've learned fuck all. Jesus Christ.
I know, it's depressing, it. But Tristan Tzara's Approximate Man was a poem that very much dealt with those serious aspects of Dadaism. And the title actually comes from an artwork that was done a few years earlier by Marcel Janco, who did what was called a portrait of Tristan Tzara in about 1919, I think. And Marcel Janco, what he did a lot of the time was design stage masks and stage costumes for the performances at Cabaret Voltaire. And he used to jokingly refer to them because obviously the public used to say, well, these don't even look like human faces, what the fuck is this? To which he would say, well, they're approximately people. He made a piece of, I think it was 1919, I'll have to check my notes about that, but he did what he called a portrait of Tristan Tzara, which of course looked nothing like Tristan Tzara, but it was essentially one of his stage masks. And the colours that he used and the structure of it is 100% what Frenzy is doing here, but just using the likeness of Vic's face.
Right.
And the idea was that for Marcel Janco, Tristan Tzara represented the ultimate Approximate Man, because Tristan Tzara was always very, very cagey about some of the performative aspects of Dadaism. And so it was Marcel Janco's way of affectionately taking the piss out of Tristan Tzara. To have all that baggage and apply it to what Frenzy is doing here, to Vic, I really think is fucking ingenious. It's maybe my favourite thing about this episode. And as it was unfolding, I was like, I can't believe they've actually done this. The other thing I was thinking throughout it was, I hope Grant Morrison sees this.
Well, Grant Morrison's not the Alan Moore. Oh, I'm not going to watch anything.
No, yeah. Grant Morrison's in some ways the anti-Alan Moore.
Yeah. Grant, if you're listening, which I know you are.
In fact, given what I've just said there, you can see Alan Moore as being the Tristan Zara and Grant Morrison being the Marcel Yanko of this situation.
Holy shit, we have gone deep. You thought this was a comedy podcast about video games.
Did we do the da there? Is that what we just did?
I think we literally did it.
By we, I mean you. Like, that was all Craig. Like.
So meanwhile, Cliff in the quiz. Cliff is explaining laboriously that he's not technically a robot. That he's been dead 2 times over, even undead. And now that it's quite scary thinking about how he might never hold Rory again. He'll never see his dumb baby fart smile. And if he could cry, he would cry a lot. And just that little bit of dialogue, that's so much Cliff. Hashtag that's so Cliff. The quiz tells him she knows how it is to feel your death. There's no context for that right now, but given what I've told you, it's because she's a massive hypochondriac. And she tells him one day every thought will have been thought, every painting will have been painted, and then she will be empty. Yeah, I don't need to hammer this too much.
Yeah.
But Cliff decides this is a hug moment.
Yeah.
Bring it, sister. And so he proceeds to hug the glass case, and it cracks. And it's at this point, guys, I'm going to drop in another deep reference here. This glass case with her in it is not just the quiz protecting herself from germs and whatnot. This, I believe, anyway, is meant to be a reference to a piece called The Bride Stripped Bare by Her Bachelors Even by Marcel Duchamp, which I think he completed it in 1922, 1923, something like that. And what it essentially is a kind of surrealist diorama in 2 sections inside a glass case. And the 2 sections are basically just made up of random mechanical and geometrically shaped shit he had lying around, right? And then the top is the bride's chamber, and the top is what he called the bachelor machine, which he insisted was meant to be a group of male figures. All the awards to you if you can make that out by looking at it, but that's what he insisted it was. And in the top chamber was meant to be what he said represented a female figure. But there are all sorts of other things going along with it. It is very much sort of in the vein of what I was talking about earlier about Picabbia's piece, where there is this idea of the human form being kind of ground down into geometric shapes, like the way in which life in the capitalist industrial age dehumanizes people, makes them into machines. And the title of the piece is obviously provocative. You know, it kind of implies multiple male violence on one woman. He was deliberately out to shock people, as the Dada often were. But there is, with that whole piece, if you look at it, and you can easily look at it online, you look at it and you think, that is literally a glass box full of fucking random shit. You are just taking the piss, Marcel.
That sounds like some art school level pretentious bullshit.
Right, some Damien Hirst shit, yeah.
And there are interviews with Marcel Duchamp where he does pretty much admit, no, I just made it up on the spot, and then I just came up with that title. But, you know, it's that Dadaist way of saying, well, it could be that, because it's going to upset people for all the right reasons. But the delicious thing about this piece is it was not finished in Marcel Duchamp's mind until it had to be moved to an exhibition area, and it was dropped, and the glass case cracked, and they came to Marcel Duchamp and said, bad news, we damaged your piece. And he looked at it and apparently went, perfect, it's finished. And so I believe this cracking of the glass, the pattern of it, is pretty similar to the cracks on the bride stripped bare by her bachelors. So I believe this is also another reference. And it was another one where I was like, I can't believe this show is doing this. But it's another moment of genius in this show where you can have this comedy moment with Cliff being Cliff. And they've managed to sneak in this reference to a classic piece of Dadaist art. Fucking amazing.
Cliff's high as shit, but it's also Dada.
It's high art.
Yeah.
I will always take a Cliff is high episode because Brendan Fraser's voice acting. Oh. So good.
Meanwhile, things not going so rosy for Larry, who is freaking out by the bus. And he's still dealing with the moving bump. And this is where he has that line that you mentioned, Alice, that if you turn out to be a rat. Meanwhile, wandering around in the fog is what looks like one of the Bureau of Normalcy troopers, talking in what I'm just going to describe as pure Dada. Hot on the heels of the Dada speaking Bureau of Normalcy trooper, there's a combination of words that should not make sense, is Larry's son Paul, whom we last saw showing his ass last season.
And I assumed, I don't know about you, but I assumed this was some sort of hallucination.
I initially thought so also.
Yeah.
But boy, nope.
Yep, turns out to be a real Paul.
As if Larry doesn't have enough going on.
Real Paul's This Is a Drag Race. Then we have a really incongruous cutaway back to Doom Manor, where Rita and Laura are engaging in some Rosie the Riveter cosplay boogie woogie. How delicious is this scene, and how wonderful is it to have these two actresses together?
Amazing.
With this energy.
I will say again, I would watch the shit out of a full series of just those two together.
Yep.
It's 100% brain candy. Just feed me it. Give my brain the beatus.
Yep. Put it in with all those pills and some plasma. They're so good together. The actresses look like they're having an absolute blast.
Oh, 100%. I would love to see some behind the scenes stuff from this, just to see what the banter was like.
I wouldn't, because what would happen if you look behind the sines and it turns out like April Bowlby and Michelle Gomez hated each other?
Yeah.
You in a strange way, even that would be kind of fun.
Like the first time I saw behind the scenes footage from I Heart Huckabees, and I was like, oh fuck this production.
I did not finish that movie. There's a fun note. I think I got halfway through and said life was too short.
I love that movie, but then I learned that David O. Russell is the worst human.
Yeah, as evinced by his BoJack Horseman reference. Sounds like you're on the phone to David O. Russell. So Rita, once again, getting very carried away about the possibilities that time travel might offer her. She reassures Laura that the Doom Patrol will figure things out and that Laura will have herself again. And Rita feels 100% confident that that self is 100% good. She has an intuition about these things. Guys, I cannot see how this is going to go wrong.
But she's, at this point, sitting and waiting on her destiny to come along. It's classic Rita.
Yeah.
You know, like, my destiny's going to happen. I'm just going to sit here and wait for it. I'm not going to actively pursue it.
Same energy, to be honest. 100% relate. So meanwhile, back in Shelley Byron's Candyland fuckpad, Kay is down in a milkshake. Shelley doesn't remember why she built the sweet shop decades ago. Time is a blur to her. And this is where she has that magnificent monologue that you mentioned earlier, James, about being their dragon. They would drop me into towns to swallow the place up. She says it got crowded, she needed a space for herself. So there is clear parallels here between herself and Jane, which I think is part of the seduction going on here. Jane thinks she's sussed out the eternal flagellation. She just says, basically, you were wronged and now you want to burn the world down as in revenge. And Shelley Byron just plainly says, sometimes you have to burn things down to build something new. And of course, in reference to what I was saying about Dadaism, that's kind of what it was all about.
Yeah. And it's also the real kind of classic supervillain trope.
Oh, 100%.
So you were used by the man, by the military-industrial complex, whatever you want to call it. And you're like, well, now I'm out, so fuck all that.
Right, yeah. So this is disturbed by the appearance of Hammerhead at the window, looking pretty scary.
All the props to her, because she looks so terrifying more than like any other screen presence. You just see her hammering in the window and it's like, oh, I'm afraid. I would not fuck with that.
Yeah, no, she's legitimately intimidating. Meanwhile, Larry catches up with Paul. Meanwhile, Paul raises a gun, aims it at Larry, it clicks empty, he drops it and a lobster crawls out and he says bang bang bagel. Any questions?
This all seems perfectly cromulent.
I mean, again, that's not something from Grant Morrison's run, but it's a 100% the kind of thing that feels like it should be.
I'm watching it going, that is definitely from Grant Morrison, but no, okay. I'm shocked.
Yeah, so Paul faints, clearly in a bad way. We catch back up with Frenzy and Vic, and this is where things are getting really juicy between these two guys. He's sculpting away at this mask and insisting, why are you? Vic says he answered, and Frenzy says, someone else answered with your voice. And Vic, you can tell is starting to get Frenzy's drift at this point, but he's doing that thing where when somebody knows that the other person has pinpointed something about them that they're uncomfortable with, they pretend they don't understand. We've all been there.
Yep.
And Frenzy has this great bit of speech here. Oh my god, I love this. Where he says, I am because I have laughed my father's laugh, and I've sang the songs my grandmother sang on the ship as it took her across the water. I am because I bled and suffered and found joy from between the fetid trees and in barber shops. I love that combination of elements, because he's taken the grandiose elements of, you know, the horrific story of transatlantic slavery, and combining it with the small details that, you know, we commonly associate with North American black culture. The mention of the barber shop and stuff like that. That's a beautiful piece of dialogue.
I wrote down, did Marlon James write this episode?
Oh, good call. Actually, it does feel like something he would write.
It gave me chills.
If you follow him online, by the way, it is like the kind of thing he would post online. Yeah, it's a great piece of dialogue. And here we're really getting the message that Frenzy is really poking in there. It's saying to Vic, you're essentially being a tool for this corporation, which ultimately is part of, you know, what is still the white supremacist superstructure. And it's like, as if I couldn't love this show anymore. It goes and pulls shit like this out, and I'm like, fucking hell.
Comrade Patrol.
Yeah, indeed. This is of no importance to the great cyborg, who doesn't even know himself, except that he's a raised hand. This is fucking great dialogue. This is amazing. Shoshana Shachi, take all the awards. And Vic getting quite rightfully upset at this point. You're telling me I don't know how to suffer or to experience discrimination. But Frenzy is saying to him, you can't suffer when you don't properly know who you are. And Joy Van Wade, really fucking, he's pulling it out the bag here when he's like, fuck this bullshit, you don't get to tell me who I am. You're only free because of me. And I don't know about you guys, but I winced at that line.
Yeah, that was like, yeesh. Thin blue line energy.
Yeah, and Frenzy immediately calls him on it. The language of the oppressor. I was like, holy shit, man. This show is really going there. Fucking hell. Yeah, this is great shit. And it's a great metaphor for the way in which Vic, as kind of a tool for this corporation that made him, has in some way internalized those values, even if he's not aware of it. And it's sort of emblematic the way in which, I think, let's be real about it, we all sort of internalize those kind of values, and it's our mission in life to try and deprogram that shit out of ourselves. Great piece of dialogue, great performances, everything about this, chef's kiss.
It's also kind of funny, right? If you've ever watched any of Greg Berlanti's other DC TV shows, like stuff like The Flash and Arrow and stuff, Star Labs in those shows is present in like basically all of them. It's always presented as this sort of slightly wacky knockabout place where they do science, you know, and it's all like, oh, we're sort of helping out the superheroes and stuff, and then it's like in Doom Patrol, it's kind of like, or government military contracts.
Yeah, pretty amazing. I also really enjoyed the Clint Mansell, Kevin Kiner score in this scene. Gradually rising and rising. Really beautiful piece of music. Really great use of it.
Yeah, can we take a moment here to appreciate that we probably don't mention it enough when we talk about Doom Patrol, but their music is absolutely stunning. The
score in this scene actually really reminded me of a Matt Quayle piece from Season 3 of Mr. Robot. It's the scene in the Season 3 finale where they're in the barn and Elliot has that big rousing speech to White Rose. The music builds all the way through. This scene had a really similar kind of vibe. But yeah, their score is crazy because this show covers so much, as we've discussed so many times now, so many different tones and so many different textures, and their score manages to do the same thing. And the serious evocative moments are really serious and evocative, you know, and then the goofy moments get really goofy. Yeah, it's great work. Don't know about you guys, but I think this show is pretty good.
It's alright.
It's alright. Don't mind it.
So back in the Candyland fuckpad, Shelley insists that Jane is letting the other personalities overpower her. And I think this was the key bit of dialogue for me. She's trying to convince Jane, perhaps, I guess, not untruthfully, that they're afraid of Kay. And that Jane is denying herself that... Now, I'm not entirely sure how to parse that, because, well, I guess, considering what we said earlier about the idea of there being a sort of amalgam of Jane and Kay, or the mastermind situation, whichever way you want to look at it, it's possibly in that direction. That's what she's hinting at. But she seems to definitely be hinting at the idea that Jane and Kay are the real team here, and the rest of the personalities are kind of holding them back. And we know that's a powerful message for Jane, because we know she was already feeling that way at the start of this episode. Shelley says you could get lost in your thoughts and desires, in Kay's thoughts and desires. And Kay says, I'd like that. And I think that's the moment where it's like, oh shit, Kay's actually being proactive. And it's like Shelley understands.
Yeah, it's always good when like the villain is like speaking what they're already thinking of. That never goes wrong. Like, that's always good times.
Yeah, and again, it's a classic trope, but it's just good
Done
storytelling,
so well.
you know.
Yeah.
But that is how you tell a good story like this. The villain has to be relatable to the hero in order to have any sort of influence over them. So yeah, it's a perfect example of that.
It's always the be careful what you wish for shit as well. Like, that's always the kind of
yeah.
You got what you wanted. Are you happy? Probably not, because this is Doom Patrol and no one's ever fucking happy. Except for the audience.
But meanwhile, speaking of tonal shifts, Cliff is realising he should be trying new things and not worrying about Laura DeMille's mission. And he says that out loud.
He spills the beans.
The quiz immediately reacts to the mention of that name. Frenzy reacts to the mention of that name. What's this? Ice cream van, the young woman we saw earlier, sits up, but I want you guys to notice she doesn't wake up because her eyes are still closed, aren't they?
Yep.
And she says, Laura fucking DeMille. What starts playing on her headphones? Copacabana. So this is a character I never thought I would ever see on the screen. Her name is Holly Mackenzie, but she's also known as Sleepwalk. And Sleepwalk is another vintage Grant Morrison Doom Patrol character who her superpower is she has super strength. That's it. Just simple super strength. Except she only has super strength when she's asleep. She does not have super strength when she's awake. And therefore she has to keep herself asleep by listening to Barry Manilow. And I cannot tell you guys, I had to pick myself up off the floor when I saw they'd actually kept the Barry Manilow reference, because I was like, are they going to keep that? Because that was a thing people joked about back in the 80s. But they've not updated it, they've just kept it Barry Manilow. Because they could have said Ed Sheeran,
Yeah.
but they went for Barry Manilow.
I just thought it was a hilarious music choice. I didn't realise it was actually...
It's integral to her character. And you messaged me earlier, James, when you were watching that bit clearly, and you just said Copacabana, and I was like, yes. I'm glad you enjoyed that, because there's going to be more of it.
Amazing.
Frenzy starts to go full cyclone. So those bicycle wheels, not just decoration, guys. Yep. Another great line here as he's whipping up the cyclone. Why are you? Because you were born with black skin, or because you were made with their metal design? It's like, holy shit, man. Once again, not just really hitting all the marks on that, which I was going to say subtext, but it's very much text at this point. But also, again, you know, it's chiming very much with the Dadaist ideas, you know, about humans being distorted in the industrial landscape and whatnot. So much great shit here. But yeah, to go back to Cliff. Oh, what's up, ice cream lady? Sleepwalk promptly punches Cliff out. He smashes through the glass case. And of course the quiz screams because now she's covered in germs. So Hammerhead and the other personalities, they also smash through glass to enter the Candyland fuckpad to retrieve Kay. Kay is very insistent that she doesn't want to go. Shelley, realising the game is up for the moment, tells Jane, I'll see you on the inside, give Laura DeMille my best. And then they all find themselves back on the bus. We never left the bus, ? They've got a new addition, of course, because Paul has come through with them. So they make their way back to Doom Manor, and Rita is very excited about what they might have discovered, only to find none of them are in the mood for Rita's bullshit right now.
She's not reading the room.
The team are no longer doing that sisterhood thing. Vic explodes at Rita, and it's another great Joy Van Wade moment here. Fuck the time machine, fuck Dada, and fuck Laura. Yeah, poor Rita. I do feel for her in this moment, but at the same time, it's like, come on, Rita.
Buy a clue.
Buy a clue. That phrase doesn't get used often enough. So Vic finds that he's got the mask from Frenzy, and it's got the message inside, approximate man, as I explained earlier. And here, of course, the approximate man is Vic, not just because he's cybernetic, but of course, he's only approximate in the sense that he's not admitting who he actually is. Mm-hmm. And I'm enjoying every moment of Joy Van Wade's angry acting here. I really feel the pain. This is a great performance, man. This is a performance worthy of the very same kind of moment that you often get in very serious social realist dramas. But here it is, being delivered by this guy.
Some guy in a hoodie and a half a metal face, yes.
Yeah, hats off to this show. We get this montage. This leads us into this montage at the end with each of the characters, and I've just written in my notes in big cap letters, dissolution. This is one of these classic dissolution moments where the team, they're just falling apart. The heroes are at their weakest now because the enemy has infiltrated them and preyed on their weaknesses. And again, it's one of those tropes, but this is one of the best examples of it I've seen, because my heart breaks for every single one of these bits of this montage. Mm-hmm. Cliff is 100% Ellen Burstyn in Requiem for a Dream energy. Because he's jonesing in front of the fucking computer, sees the pop-up, immediately clicks on it. It's like, oh, Cliff, you are falling down a rabbit hole.
Man, when's Clint Mansell going to break out the Summer Overture?
And meanwhile, in the underground, Hammerhead, Dr. Harrison, Pretty Polly, they're all insisting that Jane give Kay some space. And Jane is saying she just wants new things, everything's going to be fine. Dr. Harrison has a really sinister line here where she says, I don't know what to do with you. I was like, what does that mean? And Jane, feeling a bit lost, comes to in her room and she eats Shelley's candy. So Larry, meanwhile, is cradling Paul, promising him he's going to get him better, and notices that he's got the Bureau of Normalcy badge. It's like, what the fuck have they done to this poor guy? I mean, don't get me wrong, Paul in season 2 was a complete prick, but I don't like this fate for him. Don't like it at all.
Yep. And just by proxy, for Larry's sake, you don't like what they've done to him, No.
Yeah, indeed. And then we get another Zit Pulse. Hashtag Zit Pulse.
Pretty sure Larry's gonna give birth to a new spirit. He's having a baby. One burned man and a baby. That famous 80s movie.
I'm waiting for the Steve Guttenberg cameo then. That would be amazing.
So, despondent Rita and very, very drunk by this point Laura reconvene, and Rita is doing her best to cheer up Laura, saying, leave it up to me. I know what I'm doing. After all, I'm going to be a renowned time traveller. This is all going to be cool.
If you want something done properly.
Right. And this is where we get what I'm inferring is a bit of subconscious drunken honesty on the part of Laura, when she says, no, I've known you for 48 hours and I can tell you, that's not what you're going to be. You're not a time traveller. And not only that, you can never be that. And I guess she's not even saying it in a particularly snidey way. It's just sort of, it's almost like...
matter-of-factly, just...
Yeah, it's like sleep talking. But Rita, devastated, understandably, and she decides, and she even voices the words, fuck it, and hijacks Laura's time machine.
So excited.
So, in correspondence with our much maligned
by us
Mr. Robot themed scoring system, it's only maligned by us, nobody else cares about it.
Or understands it.
I am scoring this episode a shocking and surprising 9 5s out of 9. This is another perfect episode.
Well, Craig, gird your loins.
Loins girded.
Also gonna give Doom Patrol Season 3 Episode 5 Dada Patrol 9 5s out of 9.
I will also do the da that as well. How about the da?
That is a clean sweep.
I'm going to go so far as to say that might be my favourite episode. Like, I thought the episode before was
definitely
my
up
favourite episode,
there for me.
And then I saw that one and I was like, okay, that's my favourite episode. Like,
yeah, those were back-to-back smashers.
Yeah, it's definitely in my top batch of favourite episodes of this show.
Not only for me, but I'm assuming some of the listeners out there, because there must be a reason folk keep coming back for this shit show, is Craig talking about the Dada shit. All the shit that I just did not know, pick up on, and missed completely. Fucking made it even better. So thank you for that. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, I'm here to bring things down. You guys are here to bring it up. It all balances out. You guys are one side of the Laura DeMille personality, and I'm the other. So here's a wee side note, and it's not a downer. It's just a small blip. I almost scored this one 8.5 5s out of 9. Not because there was anything wrong with it, but because I'm going to put a pin in this for the rest of our Doom Patrol coverage. I'm going to call it Woodsy's Worry Corner. I have a worry. And it goes back to what I said about episode 1, right? So I mentioned the thing about Ronnie and about her suddenly wanting to blow up a building full of people and how they were committing the sin of Killmonger. I had a wee worry about that. And in this episode, I loved everything going on between Frenzy and Vic. And I'm really excited to see where they take Vic's development.
However, Frenzy is a villain, and so therefore, are they going to...
I have a worry they might culminate this with Vic basically turn around and say, no, but your ideas are actually bullshit and there's nothing in this, and actually I should just feel good about myself. Now, it would be very un-Doom Patrol for him to say the last thing, but I'm still, nonetheless, I'm a bit worried that some of the what is some of the really great kind of thematic and philosophical meat in Frenzy's dialogue is just kind of going to be dispensed with. And I'm only saying that because, not because I don't have faith in this show, but because I have been burned so many fucking times by shows that I've been really into who just lose their bottle when it comes to exploring these themes and really just making it, this is all just part of the villain's psychosis kind of thing, rather than these ideas actually holding some weight. Doing a Black Panther, fuck a Black Panther. I'd never want to go through that experience again.
Don't watch Captain America and the Winter Soldier then. Just
I was never going to.
No, but just to be clear on it.
So I just want to mention that. I'm going to put a pin in this. This is my Woodsy Worry Corner.
Yeah. This is also the only podcast outside of maybe a sort of redneck white supremacist podcast where you'll hear a white host say "fuck Black Panther."
Yeah, to be clear, in case somebody's confused about this, I'm saying "fuck Black Panther" from a leftist perspective. Not from, I can't believe they made this anti-white racist movie like some fucking idiot would say. I mean, in the sense that
racism, am I right?
Black Panther's a movie that has some great shit in it, as well as a really terrible final CGI battle, but also really bottles out into some of the worst fucking neoliberal, shitty, pro-CIA fucking propaganda at the end that made me so goddamn angry. And I never want to repeat that experience. Now, to be clear, I don't think Doom Patrol has a hope in hell of ever doing that. But nonetheless, I'm very, very cautious, having been burned before.
Going back to what we were saying earlier on about how this show is probably Goldilocks, and the fact that it's fallen down the crack, and the people who matter don't give a fuck about it, and the people who love it are so small amount of people that it doesn't matter, that this show could probably go full anarchist.
Destruction of capitalism, that'll be the goal of Doom Patrol in the episode.
I don't know what Diane Guerrero's contract's like, but I don't think she'd be in an episode that...
I was thinking about that as well. I know that Diane Guerrero, our unproblematic fave, is very unusual, let's just say, in terms of someone of her status as a celebrity, in that she is quite left-wing, legitimately left-wing and not just liberal. So, yeah, that gives me some hope as well.
She's also got a real case of the Benjamin Buttons. She looks younger right now than she did in Orange is the New Black.
Yeah. Oh, that's that Latina magic.
Her and the Fog, just good living, good clean living.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. Some sorcery with Wynn Everett. I really thought she was a lot younger than that, so I'm astounded she's ages with us.
Or we're just all haggard as fuck.
A little from column A.
She looks like a 40-year-old should, and we all look older. Maybe that's
right. Yeah, we're forgetting that we are Scottish.
Yeah.
As I drink more of my midweek IPA, I'm like, where's the problem?
I had cupcakes for breakfast 2 days in a row. Not even lying. Breakfast of fucking champions.
Alright, I think that wraps it up for another packed episode of Doom Patrol fun.
Good ep.
Indeed. Good ep.
Good eps.
If you like what you heard today, good on you.
Congratulations.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening. We would appreciate it if you told a friend, left us a review, comment, subscribe. All our socials and stuff will be at the end of the show.
Don't comment, subscribe, but comment, and subscribe.
No, I meant comment, like and
with
subscribe.
the words like, subscribe.
Yeah.
In true Dadaist fashion.
How about Dada? Joke's so good I made it twice.
So the Hamiltron, our resident AI, whom you heard from briefly earlier, will provide you with all the calls to action, where to find us online. Alan, I don't know what's going on between you and the Hamiltron, but I think you need to sort it out.
I don't
know whether it's sexual tension or I don't know what it is.
I think there's definitely a Crazy Jane, Shelley Byron tension going on.
Shelley.
Before we finish this episode, though, should there be a moment in this season of Doom Patrol where there's some sort of full frontal assault by the Sisterhood of Dada against our heroes, or some sort of thing where they have a large force in action, we need to call our episode about that Dada's Army.
I think that is a Dada done deal, and I'm glad you mentioned it here, because if that doesn't happen, we wouldn't have had a chance to use the joke. Oh, quick question for you guys before we go. I was thinking about this. I was watching watching episode 5 in the Grant Morrison run when the Brotherhood of Dada appear. They are led by Mr. Nobody, and I wanted to ask you guys: Are you missing Mr. Nobody right now? And B, would you like to see Mr. Nobody return and interact with the Sisterhood of Dada?
I really liked Alan Tudyk as Mr. Nobody, but yeah, he's often some animated bullshit or something, right? So
right, yeah.
I am not missing Alan Tudyk's presence as much as I assumed I would. I thought he would be a big missing piece, but it's really not. The writers have stepped up.
Yeah.
Would I like to see him
exactly
back? Goddamn right I would.
Right, yeah. Bork also. That's kind of where I'm at. He was such an iconic piece of the first season that I do remember before we went into the second season I was a wee bit nervous. But I ended up, don't get me wrong, as you've said, would be thrilled to have him back. But I don't miss him. There's just so much great stuff going on in the show that his absence doesn't really matter. But I was just thinking about it as this episode was playing out before me. I thought, I wonder what it would be like if you introduced Mr. Nobody into this mix. Would it be too much? I don't think that's a question you can ask about Doom Patrol.
No. I was about to say that. There's no such thing, right? It's just like...
In any other show, it would definitely be too much, but in this show, anything goes.
Well, looking at my East Coast IPA here, guys, it's, I'd say about 50% done, but still 50% remaining of my current glass container, shall we say.
Is that the bachelor part of your large glass?
Yes, it's slightly cracked.
Yeah.
And now it's finished.
Well, if only there was a more succinct way of phrasing that. Okay. Alan, what you got?
Yeah. I'm kind of, midway, like almost 49.5, 51 point something %.
A layman might say that's even roundabout half the ball.
Toodle pep.
fSobriety, Episode 26, The Podcasterhood of Dafties, was conceived by Craig Woods, James Hamilton and Alan fucking Todd, edited by James Hamilton, and is a production of Half the Bottle. The theme music is Colossal Estates, by Errors, available on Rock Action Records. Check us out on our socials, but don't click any pop-ups, at Facebook on facebook.com/fSobrietyPodcast, on Twitter at fSobrietyCast, on Instagram at fSobriety, and search YouTube for fSobriety Podcast, and subscribe there. Also check out the fSobriety Jukebox playlist on Spotify, curated by Craig, featuring all the music mentioned and featured in the podcast. We would very much appreciate it if you do that.
And then we come back in with the 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just me doing that, right? I think no. Okay, right. We won't do that.
It's too hard. It's too hard.
Too many moving parts.
There is. It's a tad more avant-garde than the old Mr. Robot one.
So if you're going to watch Archer, have a wee tissue at the ready for the last episode.
I mean, we all like a wank at some cartoons and stuff.
I was waiting for that, Alan. I was waiting for that. You did not disappoint me.
Not that, Alan, for once. Not that.
And that's when Rivita.
That's cracking.
I got my words jumbled there because I was going to say Rita reveals the time machine piece that she pilfered. Rivita.
Took some cottage cheese on that.
And not long soon after that, I am also talking in Dada.
English.
Who should turn up?
All right, Shelley.
I wish I was Shelley Byron.
Never leave the house.